Happy Festivus.
Hello!
Hello!
Welcome all. It is Friday night, Generational Change, and it is our Festivus. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and this is a special holiday, as it should be for everybody. It doesn't involve decorating a tree or lighting a menorah or doing anything silly. We're not praying to anybody.
We have a This is the Festivus poll.
That's the poll?
The Festivus poll.
No, that's
And the Festivus
creative.
poll, well, the Festivus poll is a plain poll. It is not to have any decor because tinsel is distracting.
Tinsel's distracting, huh?
Well, that's one of the things. But anyway, so we're going to start by reading the story of the Festivus.
Well, let's hope that our... Hey, apparently your name is Janet now. Hey, Danny. If you guys,
I find tinsel distracting.
Tinsel can be very distracting.
Tinsel can be very distracting. So
we don't have to do gift exchange, which is something that I think a lot of people like. Please hit.
So for people who don't know, this is obviously a reference to Seinfeld. I always assume people know, but there's a lot of people that don't really know what we're talking about with the Festivus. But really, there's three different parts to Festivus, and
Double K,
you're the best.
You are the best. But we didn't ask for this,
no.
So if you're giving it out of the kindness of your heart, we
no,
certainly
and she
appreciate
knows
it.
that it's going to do what we're doing, which is just educating people and serving the community.
Carrie, I'm going to assume wherever you are, it's probably pretty cold, as it is for a lot of people, including one of our first guests who may or may not be here. We're hoping that he is, because we know that the weather.
And I don't know. He gave me a heads up. I mean, Steve is like, it's really windy. They're losing power, and I don't know what the story is. He apparently ventured out of his nest for food.
Oh.
And to be able to I think he lives in mountains.
Well, he lives in the rural part of
but he's somewhere mountain-like, I believe.
There will be lots of airing of grievances, but we will start before we bring in our guests.
Yes.
The Festivus holiday pencils for Festivus.
Okay, so guys, these are really funny. So I am going to be
This is going to be super chat supporters this evening.
Will be their top super chat supporters this evening will be getting holiday pencils for Festivus. It is a pack of pencils, and they all have different Festivus sayings on them. They're hilarious, actually. It's really entertaining.
And it looks like we're getting an issue with our signal already. I mean, hopefully it holds, but it seems that there is this, well, it doesn't seem, there is this Arctic front that has swept the country.
That's what I'm talking about, and that's where Grumbine is.
We need a Festivus miracle.
Maybe we'll get a Festivus miracle.
We need a Festivus miracle. Want to try your phone?
Who's trying?
Steve.
Oh, maybe Steve. Try his phone.
Just say, if he could do his phone, that would be fine. We can do it that way, which might work.
It's just sad. He could tell us how life is.
Yeah, it is. All right.
We do give it to people in need. Thank you, Double K.
So many Christmases ago, the holiday for the rest of us, many Christmases ago, I went to buy a doll for my son. I reached for the last one they had, but so did another man. As I rained blows upon him, I realized there has to be another way. The doll was destroyed, but out of that, a new holiday was born. A Festivus for the rest of us.
So, guys, tonight
we don't want to get hit with a copyright infringement, which we did last year by airing the origin story of Festivus.
Right.
But this is the second annual Festivus that we are doing. We will have we have two traditions as Jen likes to do per year. We have our 420 live stream.
Yeah, I like
and we have our
Festivus.
So almost well, not 6 months, about 4 months and change separates between now and when that would happen.
And 420, yes.
Spring, yes.
But this is always fun. We're going to air our grievances. And
you can't take the hat off.
I have to. It's so warm.
All right, then we'll trade. You're going to wear this one.
No, it's warm. No, I can't.
It's not Festivus.
I don't want to be schwitzy. I don't want to be sitting in a schwitz.
Give me a break.
Then you wear the good one.
It's better for me anyway.
I am not putting a hat on. I know.
So, guys, if you haven't smashed the like button, please do.
I'm wearing my Festivus shirt.
Carrie, if your intention is to get yourself a collection of Festivus
you're on
pencils,
it.
You're on it already. But let's get this out there. So without further ado, we are going to bring in our wonderful guest this evening. Hopefully it will be 3 for the first panel. It might be 2, but we're
That's okay. That's okay, because the truth is we're 2, so it's really 4.
Whatever.
I'm just saying.
He is a very funny comedian, and I mean that in the most genuine way possible. Not like funny how, not like he's a clown or somebody that I want to give a hard time to.
No, he's just funny.
but he is somebody we think very highly of. We have actually, interestingly enough, when Jen and I hatched the idea, we'll tell him about it when we bring him in. But you know him for many years in the progressive movement. Yes, you know him for the years on the Jimmy Dore Show, but he is out on his own. He is doing his thing. And of course, he's now a regular contributor to one of our favorite channels, Status Coup.
Which is recently where I saw him and Tina talking, and something was so hilarious, which is when I texted you. Anyway, yeah, tell him.
Ron Placone, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hello, happy Festivus. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. I can't exactly even remember. Look, it's me, I'm baked, whatever. But like at some point recently, you and Tina were I don't even know what you're talking about. And you said something, it was so funny. And I messaged him and I said, please make sure you invite Ron for Festivus. I don't remember what it was. So funny. I think you guys are great together, actually.
Aw, thank you. Yeah, Tina's cool. It's a fun back and forth. So,
well, the things that you guys cover have obviously been great, and I did hear your conversation with the gentleman the other day who was talking about the Twitter files regarding the JFK assassination, which I thought was very interesting, but not anything I think we would consider. I think it was just confirmation of what we had always assumed, which was the CIA had a hand in Jack's assassination.
Oswald acted alone.
He absolutely did. At least
the mastermind.
At least according to the newspapers, anyway.
He's the mastermind.
This will be a fun conversation to have because our other guest that we are bringing on is a good friend of the show. You know him as being stuck in the middle, trying to decide which side of populism.
Well, now it's middle MAGA, and I want to ask about that. Bring him in here. Where we have some talking. We're going to air some grievances.
Osiris, welcome back to Generational Change.
Let's go. What's good? Happy Festivus. I am a Seinfeld fan from back in the day, so I got it. What's up, Ron?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm a big fan of your work. Yeah, we can get into it. We got to air out grievances already?
We don't have to air grievances yet. I just want to know, tell me what is middle MAGA? What does that mean?
Ron's like,
welcome to the.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I know.
Either. Ron's like, who's this dude? No, but
okay. So Osiris had a show that we started following, and we very much like called Stuck in the Middle, and it was a podcast really that would just talk reasonable things to different people and not be any particular whatever. It was. They're friendly. And now I look and his name is Middle MAGA. So I need to know what in the world is Middle MAGA.
I'm curious. I mean, what is that?
Yeah. So I'm just like a guy trying to throw a drop of water in the ocean. And what I mean by that is I want to control what MAGA means. I know it has this Make America Great Again. It's got this connotation of whatever pops that red hat. But I want to take it to just mean populism. The reason why I did this, Ron and Peter and Jen, is I love Jimmy Dore. I also love Steve Bannon. So I'm like stuck in the middle of kind of this populist both sides, which I respect. And that's the middle. I'm not in the middle of like Schumer and McConnell or whatever. That's corporate. But that's kind of what it is. It's like, I don't know if you heard this term, Jackson Hinkle was really pushing it, MAGA communism. I've been really pushing it, and the reason why I'm passionate about it is we're not going to turn this country around without bonding with people that, like Jen and Peter, they are cool. They are not my enemy, so why don't we work together and bond even if we don't agree on everything? So that's all it is.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You're reclaiming that because the truth is the phrase "Make America Great Again." Well, we all know that it has never been necessarily truly great. Like there's always been improvement to be had, but I get what you're saying. Like there's nothing that should be particularly, nefarious or Trumpian about the phrase "Make America Great Again." It really is just a phrase. Like it's not anything offensive in and of itself. So I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, even I was a big AOC supporter before. To me, she exposed herself as a fraud in the before times, before the pandemic. And there's a clip going viral of AOC basically saying, this is like 2017, saying, yeah, make America great again. It's actually not that bad of a phrase if you mean this. Right. We're in a post-modern society. Like, words don't mean anything. So, like I try to tell people on the populist right, like, because the word communism is like a trigger to them. And I get it.
Yeah.
And then the other side, the word MAGA is a trigger to them. And I'm like, if MAGA communism really means just based politics, then don't worry about the label.
Right. Cool.
That's a fair point. And I think that what we talk about a lot on the show is that there is a lot of crossover with progressives and libertarians on a number of issues, whether it is, we all want to come to a consensus about the importance of labor in this country. And I'm getting a lot from even the populist right, as much as the populist left, that, there is way too much of a control factor when it comes to management, shareholders, and the like, after what the president just did with the railroad workers. We need to be focusing on the core issues that can bring us together. Healthcare is another one. I heard a couple of conversations recently. There are some who have disputes about whether or not a single payer system is the answer. To me, it's what works all over the world. It's what will work in the United States if we had it. And then the same is true for ending the wars, criminal justice reform, and of course, having a clean energy grid, which if we don't figure that out at some point, what the hell's the point of arguing? Because we're not going to have a habitable planet to live on anyway. So these types of issues and these types of conversations, I think, are key. Ron, would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put much stock in many labels these days. I mean, these terms are kind of important for like a jumping off point, but they've been so bastardized and reassessed. And I mean, I always say anarchy is a lot like ice cream. There's so many different flavors. You're bound to find something you like. And which is true. And, because it runs the gamut from mutualism, which is very far left, to, like ANCAP, which is like very far right. Right-wing populism, if you look at the history of populism, like a really good reference, I think, is Thomas Frank's book called The People Know. Right-wing populism is actually an oxymoron. It's not really a thing when you look at what populism actually was. That term's been kind of reassessed. It means different things to different people. I'm not opposed to people using it now. It's just the world we're living in. Like, people use it all over the world. Like even, I was just in Italy, like, you'll hear different things, labeled right-wing populism there. So I don't know. I know that it is honestly like a result of our postmodern world, but I also think it's, I think part of it is a result of the Overton window in the United States is so freaking limited. Yeah. That people just start making shit up because we all need something. So, I don't know. I'm always asked, well, what exactly are you? And if I had to pick,
what are you? What are you?
What are you?
I like you're a populist left. But yeah, what are you? Well, how would you describe yourself?
That tracks. I think like leftist would be like the most simple way, populist left. If I had to pick one, I think socialist is definitely me. And I think as far as like transitioning the United States away from capitalism, I think a market socialist model would be the best way to go. Realistically, I would actually like to be a little further left than that. But, if we're being realistic, how to transition out of capitalism, I think like a market socialist model would work here pretty well, actually. So yeah, I guess that's what I am. But
I think we conflate economics with governance in terms of what's left and right, like what our political left and right is in this country. I've had people tell me you're so left, and I'm like, you have never even met the left. You've not seen the left. If I'm the left to you, you don't even know what that means. So like when we say left and right here politically, we think red, blue, Democrats, Republicans, like that. And or we think socially liberal, more socially conservative. So like when I hear the term populist right, what I noted that to mean, like when I talk to people like Osiris and people, what I think of are people that do believe in labor and populism and that type of economic justice. However, socially and in other ways, they tend to be more conservative as opposed to people like more like us. That's what I would think. Like in terms, but I think the common denominator being the populism. But what Ron is saying, I believe, which is true from a, I guess, theoretical Marxist kind of perspective, populism and right, it is an oxymoron, because the concept is when you're on the left, you're about the proletariat. Like the left is where it's, and I'm not saying communal in terms of communism, but where it's the power of the people. And the further to the right is generally more authoritarian. Okay, so it depends on what spectrum we're looking on, right? Like we're kind of conflating economic and government systems. That's all I want. Like that, I think, is where it gets complicated for people.
My assessment No, go ahead, Asarj.
Oh no, just real quick. I think it came out of necessity because how do you? Because right now people don't put Jimmy Dore and Steve Bannon in the same basket, so you would have to put them in the same basket to get rid of the left and right. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Peter?
Well, I think right now we're looking at a situation where there are a lot of issues that most people can come together on, particularly, and if we're talking about airing of political grievances.
Yes, we should start airing grievances.
You know, the number one grievance I have with the U.S. Congress is this idea that they're going to pass this omnibus bill that is chock full of a whole bunch of bad stuff, and they want to highlight the 2 or 3% of it that's actually going to help desperate people. And they can see we're doing good things. We're also doing a lot of bad stuff, but we don't want to highlight that. We want to highlight these little trickles of these. What do you like to call it? It's like, may I have a
scraps?
May I have a
I'm
scraps?
focused on how you said omnibus, because when I was a kid, there was this really cool like indoor amusement park down in Miami called Omni. The Omni. It was like this little indoor, and it had this amazing carousel. And whenever I heard the term omnibus, I always thought it was like a bus to go to the Omni. Like, and I remember thinking, yeah. Anyway. Sorry.
Well, the
omnibus.
Well,
omnibus.
Well, the Omni is actually where the Atlanta Hawks used to play basketball, but I digress.
Awesome.
I also think it's important to recognize that one of the primary issues that was supposed to be dealt with before the end of this session, the end of the Pelosi reign, and what better way to sort of highlight what a failure neoliberalism has been in this country. Most people generally agree overwhelmingly that we need to end the stock trading of our federal representatives, and the fact that that couldn't even get a vote, much less be included in this package.
Yeah, let's be clear. All the populists like that idea.
Yet apparently in the omnibus package, there's billions of dollars for corporate media. Omnibus.
You keep saying omnibus.
Isn't that what it's called?
I mispronounced it.
It's omnibus.
Omnibus.
Yeah, like it's like a transformer thing.
Yeah, let's get omnibus.
Let's call it mega.
Okay, well, so
I'm just making that up.
So anytime I hear
omnibus,
Pelosi, I really, it goes almost to the top of my grievances.
Well,
like her alone can satisfy an entire, like I could do a whole night of just grievances about her.
Can't the whole working class of this country just unite around the fact that our government doesn't serve us? In case in point, we have legalized insider trading. That is so unbelievable.
Oh, something I found out last night. This is really interesting. Speaking of Nancy Pelosi. So shout out to our favorite candy store in Milton Manors, To the Moon. I was actually there last night, which is where I got my Festivus pencils. They carry Jenny's ice cream. And lo and behold, they have a relationship with the Jenny's ice cream people, and they know things. So remember when Nancy Pelosi was showing off all her fancy ice cream during COVID from the ice cream, from her expensive freezer, and everyone's like, she doesn't even pay for that ice cream. It's sent to her for free.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
It just gets worse.
I literally just found that out last night.
Maybe we could get Ben and Jerry's ice cream for free if we just start talking about it all the
I
time.
don't need ice cream for free, but sure as shit, neither does she.
Now, what do you all think about? I heard AOC. I didn't double check this myself. I heard AOC voted against it. Is that true?
Haven't checked the votes
Okay.
yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you know,
what's good in it?
Guys, is there anything good in the package?
Well, I can answer that.
Okay, what's in it?
Well, here's an example. Well, I can't like speak to everything, but I think this is sort of a snapshot that kind of shows like what they did. One of the things that I really went to the mat for most of this year was a campaign for 2 pieces of antitrust legislation that really would have went very far in breaking up big tech. 2 bills called OMA and ACOA. They would have stopped Amazon's practice of manipulating search results. Same with Google. And they would have ended Apple's pretty much monopoly on app stores and, charging alternative apps commissions and stuff like that. These bills were actually pretty popular. They were really good pieces of antitrust legislation. It would have been the best antitrust we've seen since the frickin' 1980s. And Chuck Schumer promised to vote, and he just was able to successfully wait out the clock. I mean, in our last Hail Mary attempt was putting this in the omnibus. Chuck Schumer didn't do it because he is totally compromised by big tech. Tons of Democrats and Republicans alike are, but Chuck Schumer is one of the kings. And, the buck stopped with him, so he was able to wait out the clock. But one of the things that they did in this package as sort of like, here's a couple crumbs, is they did give like a significant chunk of change to a bunch of antitrust agencies. So it's like, okay, that's cool. Then nothing. But what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with the money?
So you're basically you're just perpetuating this idea that there is some form of resistance.
I'm not perpetuating any idea.
No,
I'm
not
saying
you.
what they did.
No. By giving that side money, it's like that's what I'm saying. They're creating the Mick resistance. They're making it look like they're doing something when in fact they're not.
Yeah, they're throwing you like an inkling of a scrap. Like, so because they know they pissed a lot of people off by not having these bills because there was a hell of an effort around them. So they're like, well, okay, we were worried the votes weren't there for the bills, which is bullshit. The votes were there. But they're like, we're worried the votes weren't there for the bills, but I mean, look at all this money we gave to antitrust for them to, make sternly worded speeches when the cameras are on or whatever it is they actually do, because they haven't really stopped any mergers for a very, very long time. And now it's come to our groceries. So buckle in, U.S.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see anything changing regardless of who is in charge. I think we are a completely corporate captured country. And we have to be really realistic about how we're getting ourselves out of this. And to me, it's going to take a labor revolution in this country in order to change that fact. You want to have a general strike? You want to have some semblance of shutting down the economy on behalf of the workers? Something's got to give. And unless that happens, we're just slowly but surely falling down the mountain at this point because we have no leverage. And the way these bills are designed, they're written by corporate lobbyists and they pass them. They're not actually doing anything, to answer on behalf of the will of the people. I mean, anyone who thinks that, if you, God bless you if you're still taking the blue pill. I know I can't. I can't live in ignorance, and I never could.
I try.
The good news is that most people are kind of waking up to this. The question now becomes, how are we going to sort of link up, have some form of solidarity regarding workers? Because to me, that's where it's at.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, man. That really is. I wish I had like a really extensive, solid answer, but I think that's kind of what we're trying to figure out. I mean, I think at the end of the day, a couple years ago, Bernie, to his credit, showed us that we weren't as alone as we thought we were. I mean, I think that the left in general is still the smallest group politically in this country. I think by a lot, actually, but we're not as small as we thought we were. There's a little bit more of us than we realized. I think politically, I mean, I always say like being a leftist in the United States is like being a surfer in Nebraska, and your only way to get to the ocean is by walking. But and I do think that's actually being too generous. But we're not as small in numbers as we thought we were. And of course, we have some commonalities, I don't agree with libertarians on everything, but we agree about war most of the time. We both want to end the war machine. We agree about the corporate capture of our politics. We might not always agree on how to solve it, but we agree that it exists. So, hey, let's start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a general strike. I think anything less is not enough. But as far as like, how do you pull something like that off? I mean, that's going to take a whole lot of cooperation more than we have right now. And it's nobody's fault that that's the case because we live in a country where so many people are like 1 or 2 paychecks away from going under that they can't wrap their head around such a thing. And I don't blame them. So I guess what I'm saying is happy holidays. And
But, I did kind of take a white pill from that because I don't know if it's as hard as
can I jump in real quick here?
Yeah,
I need a little help. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't understand all the pill terminology. I don't.
Sorry. Yeah, I use this stuff like everybody knows it. Sorry, the white pill is like optimism.
Okay.
Black pill is like I'm very pessimistic and dark.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just say these terms. I'm an internet geek at this point. Sorry.
Okay.
I am, but it sounds like it's
I
a
appreciate
down.
the help.
Yes, it sounds like it's a down topic, but I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, is it really that hard? I don't know. I don't know if it's really that hard right now. You mentioned kind of just to use these labels because I don't have the vocabulary to do others. You got the populist left, libertarians. I like libertarians a lot too, and you got maybe the populist right. man, none of us have the numbers to do anything. So
Yeah.
we don't have the numbers separated. And that's by design, I think. But is it really that hard? Like you said, I just saw, Peter did that video on Bernie and how he turned his back on the bill with Yemen. I think all those groups I just mentioned are against the war. I think all the groups that we just mentioned are for the workers, for the people. And I challenge people on the MAGA side. I think that's one of their biggest missed opportunities. If you can get them to click on, they didn't have any message for workers during the midterms that I heard resonate. And I think they could do that, and we could. You get the people who are prominent on all of these spectrums. I actually don't think it's that hard. If you get the prominent people together, everybody's echo chambered because of social media. But the good thing is, if you get kind of the head people in a lot of these factions getting together, you might be able to pull something off.
Yeah, and I think it's also, the one thing you can say about the populist right is that they're at least willing to do something. They're at least willing to try something different, because right now they've literally scared, Kevin McCarthy to death, to the point in which, he's trying to throw things out there like, yeah, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Whereas nobody on the left even dared to challenge Hakeem Jeffries taking over as the House Minority Speaker. And
this is forced to vote. It's forced to vote on the populist right. Yeah, and they're doing more than happened when the whole forced to vote campaign went on with Jimmy and everything. The populist left did nothing in D.C. We're seeing a little bit more from the right now.
And that's not, and again, I think that's where, Ron talks about and Jen talks about where this drift towards fascism becomes more real, just as it would be if it was on the left and getting too much into, the corporate neoliberalism. Because the problem that we still have is that the system is designed for the cream to rise to the top, and for people that are taking advantage of this idea that the sort of America First policy, which is buy American, pay a living wage, have universal health care, instead of, oh, you just don't want to bring business to other countries. Well, no, it's not that we don't want other countries to have business. We don't want to employ slave labor in Southeast Asia, which is taking jobs away from people here in the United States who are desperate to have a living wage. And since we have no labor laws in this country, they just tell them, fuck them. We'll screw them anyway, and there's nothing they can do about it. And the fact that the fight is happening so much more on the right than it is on the left, I mean, it's almost inexcusable at this point. I mean, if one person, whoever it is, whether it's AOC, whether it's Rashida Tlaib, whether it's Jamal Bowman, whether it's even somebody like Ro Khanna, who is not very inspiring, nice guy, but even if somebody just stood up and said, we're not taking this shit anymore. You want to primary me? Fine, primary me. I've got thousands, tens of thousands of people who will agree with what I'm doing. I may not get the same fundraising I used to, but if the people are behind me, some shit's going to get done. And I kind of feel like it's just going to take one person to make that change that's going to inspire others to say, you know what? Yeah, we got to do something.
Well, if that one person is a politician, then I mean, that's the most hopeless thing I've ever heard.
I agree.
No offense, Peter.
I agree.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we need our Lucy Parsons, we need our Emma Goldman, we need our Eugene Debs, who actually did what. And that's an interesting guy to bring up, because Eugene Debs, he actually was in office for 2 years. Does anybody remember that? No, not really, because he's known for everything else he did as a freaking outsider. And that's what we're missing. We need like the Joe Hill. Hey, I live in San Pedro, the labor area of Los Angeles, because it's where the port is, and we got a big old Joe Hill statue in the middle of town. And that's somebody that nobody messes with, regardless of your political acumen. So, I mean, that's what we're missing, and I mean, I don't know how to find that person or persons.
Well, I have an idea.
I think it comes from labor. I mean, it comes from labor, and that's where it's going to have to come from. It's like a chicken and an egg problem, because I agree, we need a general strike, but we're a country without any sort of safety net or healthcare or infrastructure to support people as they can have a general strike. And that's like, we are so spiraled down that every step is so much harder to do it, because the general strike is really the only way to really shut shit down here.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved for the railroad and UPS and everybody to strike at the same time over the holidays would have been amazing to me.
Well, you guys haven't been on the show for a little while, and the last time we were at the polls on election day, I was talking with one of the leaders of the firefighters union, and he was talking about the importance of a living wage, the importance of universal health care. I mean, that is a huge thing with the firefighters because of all the shit that they have to deal with. Because as you guys probably followed the story with Jon Stewart, there are certain cancers that are covered for firefighters and other cancers that are not.
Right.
And of course, the cancers that are not covered are the ones that most firefighters are susceptible to getting. Shocking, right?
It's so ridiculous.
And so when you have those components put together, when you have civil liberties put together, when you have even criminal justice reform put together, they agree. What was unique about this gentleman is that he is a Trump DeSantis supporter to the bone. And so when you bring the labor component into the equation, that's when all of this division shit tends to go out the window. Because you could be in the Teamsters Union, for example, which is fairly split between Bernie supporters and Trump supporters, but they're all populists. They're all rank and file. They're all seeking a better life, and they realize that it's that whole it's like, well, they came for the so-and-so, but I didn't say anything.
Well, they're just their workers. Look, this is a class war. This is a class war. So, the people that realize that, the sooner the better. Like that's just would be helpful because that's what's happening here. Everything else is sort of like these fictional dividers.
But you put yourself under the labor umbrella.
Yeah.
And most people are willing to, set aside their differences. And that is the key. And is there a labor leader in this country who's willing to step up? Frankly, is there a labor leader in this country who's willing to primary Joe Biden in 2024? Because to me, that message
would be so cool.
The loudest if somebody's willing to. Yeah, I could imagine.
If there was somebody like a Jimmy Hoffa type person out there that like would do something like that.
I know people have been on like a Sarah Nelson to do it, but if there was like just that rough and tough, almost like John Fetterman, like down in the weeds type of hard-hitting labor guy or lady for that matter, that's willing to challenge the president and really all more or less could just run on the fact that President Biden passed the most anti-labor legislation since Reagan fired the air traffic controllers 40 years ago. I mean, that would inspire a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I mean, everybody has different thoughts on it, but my first thought is, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm 100% for it. Jimmy Dore is my first thought. I would support him. I hope he does announce. I'm not even joking. I hope he does announce. I heard rumors he was thinking about it. But the people that I talk to on the populist left, I've not talked to one person that doesn't like Jimmy Dore.
Well, you're talking to a person who knows Jimmy, and
I know you guys have.
I would not support him because, again, for Jimmy, it's not that he doesn't hit, and Ron has mentioned this before. It's not like Jimmy doesn't hit on the right issues, but you also have to recognize that for a lot of these guys, this is also a career. This is a job, and there are certain ways that one goes about it. You're not going to see Jimmy on the picket lines. You're not going to see Jimmy traveling out to Standing Rock and fighting with the people who are trying to stop the aggressive pipeline drilling in native lands. You're not going to see that type of thing. That's not to say that his commentary, it doesn't hit the right notes for the right people. I'm not saying that isn't the case.
What about Tulsi?
Tulsi Gabbard made her bed. She decided that her career was.
Yeah, who knows what she'll stand for a year from now.
Correct.
Tulsi Gabbard, I trust her as far as I can throw her. So
100%.
Yeah, I wouldn't support her. I would, and I used to think highly of her, but
the only person I would go.
I've had egg on my face for her. Yeah, I was wrong about her.
The one person that's out there who has been floated would be Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
Now, Jesse,
I love Jesse. I loved he was on your show a while back.
Yeah.
Come on, Ron.
No,
I like
Ron.
Jesse. It's not a matter of liking or disliking.
Yeah.
It's a matter of who is somebody who could potentially, at the very, very least, grab 5% somewhere in a general. Who is that person? And, the person who has gotten closest in the past 8 years is Jill Stein. She got about 2 with the Green Party. Unless like one of the libertarians did better, I'm not sure. But
I just think the Green Party, I know
They're
Jesse's
the best. They're the best third party we got, though. I mean, the Greens have plenty of problems, but they're
They
the
have
best third
problems.
party we got.
Well, if there was
Or as far as the left is concerned, I mean, Greens versus Libertarians. I don't know enough about the Libertarian Party as far as numbers go, but the
as far
Greens.
as existing third parties, that's it. But to me, and I've said it a million times, just their name alone even is just too niche to appeal to enough people to have any sort of like.
It's a valid concern. Yeah, I mean that's a valid concern. I don't dispute that. So
it's almost like green hippie. And look, I was a Stein voter, so I get it. Like I'm not, I will vote for I will generally vote for as left as whatever is on the menu, and if that's a green person, that's a green person. But I think that they make some very poor choices politically and strategically, and that they just don't appeal to enough people.
To me, it's going to be tough if you're going to go through the Democratic Party. If Bernie couldn't do it in 2016, then I don't know who can.
Yeah.
I mean, with their whole setup is...
You're not going to be able to challenge Rip Van Winkle unless he steps down on his own. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just so it's going to take an outsider in 2024, and what outsider could get close?
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, like that's a heavy lift for somebody to enter that race as an outsider, be it through the Democratic Party or otherwise, and then to, build enough momentum to get on the ballot, to get somehow on a debate stage at any point in time when the Democrats are going to have basically a non-existent primary. I mean, I just don't see it happening with anybody. It's just straight up not going to happen.
No, there is no.
And when you're talking about like podcasters and stuff like that, Jesse Ventura was literally in this seat before. The reason he didn't do it was because he would have had to have stopped his show, because you can't have a show. You can't have an active show and run for president. You can't do that. Gosh, no. So you would need to like stop your show. And he would lose his health insurance, which, by the way, I mean, that's another way like the United States keep people down. Keep health insurance tied to a job so that people like can't leave a job for certain things, i.e. running for president. So, I mean, a lot of these like, names everyone's throwing around, I'm just like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that wouldn't be anything other than a really miserable experience for the person. I mean, look, I used to work with Jimmy. We have our disagreements and I quit the show, but I still like the guy. So I wouldn't want to see him run for president because I think it'd be the worst experience of his freaking life. And if he asked my opinion, I would tell him that. I'm like, hey man, you got to do you. But I think this will be the worst experience of your life. That's what I think. And, but do what you got to do.
We need a hell of a lot more consistency in terms of labor solidarity. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody else, though. It's just hard. And the other thing for me is I'm not into the race stuff. So if I like Marianne Williamson. I like her a lot. But just a little bit too much into the identity stuff for me.
Well, I think that's, they say that this country is socially liberal and economically conservative. I actually think it's the opposite. I think the country is socially conservative and economically progressive. I think that more than anything else is the issue here. And we're all about making sure that everyone is inclusive. But what ends up happening with the culture war is that it distracts from the economic war.
Yep.
And the culture war will always be won by the people that are going to resist any type of substantial change, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's in social media, whatever it is. And the reason it gets talked about and the reason there's this cancel culture is so that there isn't an opportunity to say, all right, look, we're going to disagree on X, Y, and Z, but A, B, and C, particularly economically speaking, people agree. The object of the game is to avoid talking about that. It's like with Ron DeSantis here in Florida, who is like a rocket ship heading towards the White House right now. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to focus on the fact that housing is an absolute crisis here in Florida and the buck does stop with him and the decisions he's made, that's what he needed to be hit on relentlessly, and it never happened.
No, our Democratic Party flew an airplane with a banner hanging behind it that said DeSantis is a fascist. That was the Democratic Party's idea in Miami-Dade. That was how they spent their money. That was their campaign contribution.
That's worse than Twitter.
Oh no, they're
that's
ridiculous.
lame.
This is a group. These are people that have run out of ideas, and they just sit
that's
there
pretty pathetic. I do think DeSantis is a fascist, by the way. He's a fascist, but that's kind of stupid.
The point. That's
not I got
yeah, that's just not effective.
They're aiding and abetting the circumstance and not going after the meat and potatoes of the problem, because if both sides are corporate captured, they're never going to identify the actual crisis here. That's the problem. If you really want to hit it where it hurts, it's like DeSantis made a deal with I think a cruise line company in Key West, and it had everything to do with whether or not a certain operation was able to dock either at like certain times of the year or in certain ports. And they just greased his wheels with about $1 million campaign contribution in a super PAC. And lo and behold, they got exactly what they wanted. It's all the same bullshit on both sides. Joe Biden answers to the railroad oligarchs, not the railroad workers. And anyone pretending that this is a labor president in any way,
God, no.
he's a colossal failure of the highest order. And so while we keep spinning our wheels wondering, well, is it going to work this way? Is it going to work that way? No, we need to figure out how to build this labor solidarity. And it's going to take, I believe, a handful of different leaders. It's going to take a consensus amongst all of the rank and file that the only way we're saving ourselves is when we finally decide we've had enough and labor is going to unite against the ruling class. When that happens, that's when change will happen in this country. That I believe.
Yeah. I'm curious, Ron, are you familiar with fellow comic Dave Smith, libertarian?
I know who he is. I mean, I think we might follow each other on Twitter, but I don't know a whole lot about him. I mean, I know he's a libertarian, and that's like kind of his niche, and I know he's got a big following, to my understanding, but that's all I know.
Okay. What do you all think? Because I think actually, Jen and Peter, you have some libertarian tinge to you. Both of you, I think.
When you say like when it has to do with civil liberties, that's it. Like for me, I'm very much for that. I don't support bans or mandates. That's just not my thing.
You're not going to get an economic movement in libertarianism to unite the country, because libertarian right basically believes in the mantra of kill or be killed. Like if you can't hack it yourself,
see, and that's where
that doesn't work.
And that's where I tend to be pretty left, because I do believe in this idea of the collective. That's what makes us better. Otherwise, go live on an island somewhere where you just be your own off the grid thing, and then you don't have to pay taxes. Go wherever it is, buy your little space, and that's great. But the rest of us who have to live together collectively are participating in a civilization, and I believe that people should have a social safety net. I believe that everyone should have healthcare. Like, I just believe that we're all better off when everybody has healthcare and has a living wage. And I don't think anybody should have to work more than 40 hours a week to be able to just enjoy their little life.
Yeah,
and I just whatever. So like you can label, like I don't really, it's not a label, and I'm against war, and I'm against like all of it. Like I just, so I'm pretty left on those things. But I don't tell I'm not what you would consider, what the media would say, these sort of lefties that are wanting everybody to wear masks and like over woke. And I'm not with that. I'm not with them. I'm like about just, be kind. And like just be kind. It's not that complicated.
And the libertarians are correct when it comes to government waste. They are absolutely correct about that. The problem is that the real libertarian right, like the hard libertarian right, they don't believe in any taxation. They think taxation is theft. And so when you treat it that way, that's where there is no compromise. The compromise could be, yes, we are absolutely overtaxed. There is socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for everybody else. If we had a system where it was economically populist and we were allocating our tax dollars to more suitable needs, like a living wage, like healthcare, like a clean energy grid that we desperately need, and not spending hundreds of billions of dollars, which again, that's the intention of the war in Ukraine. It's not about how quickly do we end this thing. It's about how long can we possibly keep it going.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's about. And so ultimately,
that's on both sides.
Both sides. And so if we're ever going to get to that consensus, that's where I know what you're talking about, Osiris. There was a conversation that that Dave Smith had with a few people the other day. I think Jimmy was part of the conversation, but the conversation itself basically was like, well, what is it going to take for us to find that common ground? And so if the common ground with, let's say, the populist right is, well, we want to have our guns and we'll give you universal health care. Well, look, if that's what it's going to take to bring a lot of people together, then we can have an even further conversation about what those parameters may look like. If we're not,
but what exactly? So, I mean, not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but
go for it,
please.
What do two groups of people with no power making promises to each other accomplish?
Well, if you're going to bring them together into, let's say,
he's just talking theoretically to get people to work together.
No.
So you're wanting to just have groups of people think of that group as somebody we can work with, somebody that, okay, well, and the more people that you could bring under this idea of labor and uniting under these economic.
Yeah, no, I get the.
So I think I don't think he means like a literal agreement between people. That
no, I understand that, but like, what is that? I mean, yeah, so what would that look like though? Like, is there going to be some kind of like uniparty? Because I don't know if I
think there needs to be a national labor council. And this National Labor Council does not involve union bosses. This involves labor organizers in every corner of the United States, whether it is somebody who is trying to unionize a Starbucks office or somebody who, like Chris Smalls, is trying to, or has successfully unionized an Amazon warehouse. I don't see anybody standing out there ready to unionize at Walmart. That has to change. If you have somebody who is in a labor union that is not currently serving you properly, a lot of the locals are much better suited for the fight that needs to happen. Let's say in the SCIU, let's say in the CWA, let's even say in the union that is the most attached to the Democratic Party, which is the AFL-CIO. If there are people within that organization that are willing to say it is time for us to really unite labor across the country, you could have, you could have a couple of hundred leaders, but it isn't necessarily leaders. It's more, it's organizers. It's organizers of different groups and different factions who understand that it's not about you locking arms with, let's say, the Democratic Party. It's our strength is so great that now the Democratic Party has to come to us. There is no other way. And that, to me, is more or less the consensus of what could happen if the railroad workers, for example, decide to strike, which I still think there's a chance that they may try to do something despite what Biden just did. That's my theory. That's my proposal, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know how it would work, Ron, but we saw Tulsi stumping for Carrie Lake. And a few years ago, I would have never thought that would happen. So I think it's just
and because she found a new lane. I mean, look, I think that Tulsi Gabbard is a pretty poor example. Tulsi Gabbard, she ran the political gamut. First, I mean, she was raised super religious, so she was this religious right person for the first part of her career. Then she kind of changed her tune and became kind of like a DNC darling. Then that didn't work out for her, so she was kind of part of the Bernie left. Then she was kind of like an anti-war libertarian. Now she's just straight up MAGA. What'll she be next year? I don't know. Like, let's make bets on it. What do you guys think? I don't know. Maybe she'll be part of an. Oh, you think?
Back around to the other side. Like, is it like a rotation?
No, it's called.
I guess. I mean, who knows? I mean, and I think at the end of the day, she's just looking for a lane and looking for a paycheck, and she found it. So, I'm not gonna I don't know. I mean, I think there's.
Yeah, if there was some principle to it, I would definitely agree. But Tulsi wears opportunism on her sleeve. She just does. And that's not to say that she doesn't have good takes on certain issues, but the whole abandoning single payer universal health care, the fact that she's wishy-washy regarding, she used to be so downright hardline on ending regime change wars.
That was her thing.
And then that message has basically changed. She's got a very You know, she's got a very anti-Islamic streak in her. She does. You got to call it what it is. You know, there's something to be said for, and we get into this. We have this people that like to support certain personalities, certain people in politics in particular. You know, we get caught up in when every once in a while they throw some red meat in people's direction that sounds really good. That, oh yeah, you know, she's right about that, or he's right about that, and that's great.
Yeah, we should talk about grievances. That's on my list of grievances.
Okay,
Let me put that on top of my fucking list of grievances. I am so tired of all these online brands where it makes you look cool and contrarian on Twitter when somebody who has 99 terrible fucking takes has one good one. And like, it's one thing to be like, okay, let's try to connect on some of our commonalities. We have a few pillars in common. Let's try to work with this. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. But like, just trying to have some like outsider contrarian take just because there's this one nugget of a total not shitty take, and you're like, well, actually, and then you just have verbal diarrhea for the rest of your 279 characters or however many you have left. I'm so fucking tired of looking at it. First of all, you want to try reaching out to more people because that's something else we should be talking about. Let's keep in mind there's like so much of the country, over half of it, who's just apathetic and checked out. How do we get them turned on to principles? Not bickering about fucking like insulary YouTube shit that they're not even paying the fuck attention to. Right. Can you imagine? Yeah. Imagine turning on a sportscaster and instead of talking about the sports that are going on, they're talking about other sportscasters. How long would you listen? Less than a fucking minute. You turn it off. It's
That's
so
actually really
pointless
good.
and tired.
Okay,
it's
that would
so
be a
pointless
really
and tired.
good.
Ron,
Great analogy.
ESPN any ideas?
No, that would be an amazingly good like Saturday Night Live type skit, like a spoof on what social media commentators would be like if they were sportscasters. That would be so freaking funny.
That could, yeah. All right. Well, from that perspective, I would say that would work.
That would be really funny. And would they? And the thing is, they would have to talk about it in that tone. They would have to talk about it in their sportscaster tone about other sportscasters. That would be hilarious.
Great analogy. Great analogy. That's why, you know, Jen and Peter, they don't do that type of stuff. They focus on the issues and
So does Ron. You guys are,
yeah.
You know, it's very important. I mean, like even the other day, and I think, you know, this is a good place to wind down the conversation. You know, Ron, you really did an amazing job covering the Twitter files regarding the JFK assassination. And a lot of people want to push this aside. But the reason that's, and this is, again, when it comes to issues like the military industrial complex and the deep state, most people are united on this issue. The reason why the JFK assassination is so significant, with the tepid admission that it was the CIA who killed him, which is what the overwhelming majority of people have believed as a consensus for quite some time. They just needed confirmation that was the case. It is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that we have a shadow government that dictates the terms of how this country is run. And the elected representatives in this country more or less have no say in anything whatsoever. And we as the people do not have a say in it whatsoever, unless we figure out a way to get together. If we figure out a way to get together, then there might be an opportunity for something to change.
Really?
But, well, I had no choice.
It
just needed to be done.
You had to squish it on the screen?
There was a mosquito. There was a mosquito on the screen. The mosquito had to meet its maker, and I had to do the job.
Screen. Whatever.
It's a Festivus.
Florida.
That is not a Festivus miracle.
Are we all like not in shitty weather places? Because like you were talking about like bad weather happening, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it was like 65 degrees today when I was at my farmer's market.
Here. No, Steve Grumbine lives somewhere in a mountain.
He lives in Central PA. Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I know what that part of the world's like. It can get brutal in the winter.
He just called me and told me that power was coming and going, and that he didn't know that he'd be able to have power, and he doesn't. I don't think he has power. But interestingly, like the front cover of CNN says, like how many people without power. So apparently this is a thing.
Are you in the middle of the country? Is that part of the middle MAGA thing?
No, I'm in Colorado.
Oh,
it's
nice.
cold, 1 degree right now. Yeah,
man, I love Colorado. Yeah. I really love Colorado, but I think I would just kind of like have just a total like meltdown, no pun intended, where it's just like, hey, it was like sunny and 75 degrees, but we got 24 feet of snow 2 hours later. I just couldn't, as a guy who has to travel a lot, I mean, I just couldn't freaking handle that. I think it would drive me nuts. One time I was flying out of Colorado Springs, and my buddy who I was staying with was like, yeah, man, you might get stuck here. And I'm like, and I'm looking out, and it's like sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. I'm in a t-shirt, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, we might get a freaking blizzard, and might get stuck here in a couple hours. The blizzard might happen, and I'm like,
Right.
I don't know how you guys do this. I don't know. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
some people embrace it and they love it. All power to them. But
Where are you, Osiris? Where in Colorado are you? Are you in Denver?
I'm a little bit north in Denver. Yeah, before this cold front came in, it was like 40 degrees in like 3 hours. Went from 40 to like negative 30 wind chill at night. It was crazy.
You
No,
know,
That's
I
not
went
normal.
to
Colorado
Boulder.
Springs is my favorite airport in the country, though.
It's beautiful out there.
It's a great place, and the airport is fantastic. It's very small. The Wi-Fi's killer, and they got a lot of really cool sand art. So
Shout out to the Colorado Springs Airport. Osiris,
Colorado
you know
Springs
I went,
Airport. I'll see
you
you
know
soon.
I went to Boulder, right? Osiris, you know I lived out there for 4 years for college.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think we talked about that. Boulder
yeah, I
is
was in
beautiful.
Boulder. Boulder's the best.
Yeah.
Boulder's dope.
Best. I know, it's a really cool place to be. And I was there when before it was as cool as it is now. I mean, it was still cool, but now it's definitely been Californiaized.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
it is.
No
quite,
offense, Ron. No offense to you,
No,
California.
none taken. I mean, hey,
Wonderful
we got our problems. I love my neighborhood, but California, we got our issues just like everywhere else. No doubt about it.
Ron, lead us off. How can people find you? What are you working on? Obviously, it's been tremendous having you both on as we conclude our first panel. Ron, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun. Happy Festivus and holidays to everyone. You can follow me on Twitter at Romplacone. Romplacone.com is my website. I got some tour dates coming up. January 7th, I'll be in San Diego. January 28th, I'll be in Tucson, Arizona. You can use the promo code Lucy at checkout for tickets on that one for a discount. That is not just a stand-up show. It's the premiere screening of my short film Loner, because I got a short film called Loner coming out. I got another movie called Left at Wall that I'm working on. And you can find everything online. My podcast, Get Your News On with Ron, and I hope to see you all on the road in 2023.
Do you ever come this? I mean, I saw you here. That was, what year was that? It was like 2000. Yeah, but that was in like 19.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. Well, we were supposed to go to Florida, and then, the pandemic shut everything down.
Yeah.
And right now, because I'm doing more international stuff, I only do like one region of the United States a year, pretty much. I mean, other than like regional West Coast stuff. So
Yeah.
this year, it's going to be the Midwest. Like I'm coming to like Minneapolis, Madison, Chicago, and maybe Colorado. Colorado's actually in the maybe pile. But then I'm like trying to go to the UK and stuff. So these days I'm only doing like one American region a year as opposed to like only doing stuff in the US. So yeah, but Florida, I think I really want to do Fest. If I ever got invited to do Fest, I would totally be there. But that's up in Gainesville. That's not super close to you guys. So
No.
Definitely not. But, Florida's 5 states as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
Osiris, hit us.
Yes. Visit middlemaga.com. I'm doing a lot of more stuff on Rumble now so I can be uncensored. But I know this channel's not the biggest probably Carrie Lake fan, but if you are big on election integrity, the case that just went down the last couple of days with Carrie Lake is important. I got videos up on that. You can search YouTube, Twitter, middlemaga.com. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Osiris, for coming on. I love talking to you. And Ron, it's always fun talking to you. And this
Good
was
seeing
even
y'all.
depressing talking, and it was still fun talking to you.
Yes, we will always find it. But the thing that I think we do a fairly decent job of on our show is that we don't get stuck on things that we can't agree on. We try to find that commonality that brings as many of us together as possible. No, we are not Carrie Lake fans.
And
Sorry,
now,
we didn't first say that,
Osiris,
but
now our next panel, we're going to the left.
we're going really.
We're going left on our next panel.
I'm good with that.
Going to the left.
If you guys are going to hang around and watch, I think you'll enjoy it. So, with that
Absolutely.
said, Osiris, Ron,
Thank
obviously,
you guys.
Merry Christmas
Take
to
care.
both of you guys. Thank
Happy
you so much.
Festivus.
Happy Festivus.
Happy Festivus. Take care.
y'all. All right,
Bye.
peace.
Yeah, it's all good.
No, it's fun.
It's all
And
fun.
we are just getting started. But of course, as you guys know, we now have our second panel. Which is
I just found out my bartender is being delayed by a couple of hours, and that displeases me.
Your bartender.
Okay, so my husband is stuck at like a friggin' office party, and I was really hoping he would come home and make me a beverage and bring it here.
I actually saw a very good. Listen, I am not. For those of you who know, I'm pretty straight edge for the most part, and so, but there was a really, I know, square as a box.
Beyond.
Yeah. Harvey understands.
No,
he understands.
Harvey's cooler than you.
He probably is.
I'm sure he is. Harvey's in the college universe. He's way cooler than
But
you.
when I was putting up our post on Instagram earlier, I saw a peppermint, a dark chocolate peppermint encrusted White Russian, and it looked like an amazing drink. So basically, you have like the whatever you would call like the dark chocolate malt.
I understand. People, please understand that him talking about this beverage is the most he's ever engaged with a beverage.
So anyway, they put the dark chocolate on top and they encrust it with the peppermint, candy.
Yes. Did you have this?
I was just admiring it. I wasn't actually having
exactly my point.
And then
my point. Oh my God.
Well, I'm just saying it certainly would.
My bartender is delayed,
So we are on to panel number 2.
We are.
Make sure to smash that like button. Get this out there to as many people. Remember, it is the Festivus for the rest of us.
The Caucasian.
Yes.
Call it the Caucasian. For any of you Big Lebowski fans out there, which is one of my.
The Caucasian.
He calls it. It's the Caucasian. But like that's my favorite movie like ever.
Yes.
For anyone who knows me, like that is really my most favorite movie ever is The Big Lebowski. I cannot get around it.
I am the walrus.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
So our first guest is, we have 2, what I call resident guests, because they are basically welcome anytime
they ever met?
I don't know,
2?
but we've made a habit of introducing people on our podcast.
Oh, and that reminds me, I have a message for Harvey from Steve Grumbine, who told me to pass Harvey a message. This will be interesting. This will be a good.
Steve will be coming on. You never know.
I don't know. He could get power.
Light one. Of course, she is the author of Presidential, which is the true history of the presidents of the United States.
And just just somebody who's a really good, accurate historian and journalist. And she is the executive. Is it the executive editor of? I know it's Black Agenda Report, but is it? I always forget this.
Executive editor.
Yes. Executive editor. That's good. Yeah, that's
good enough.
Right,
Margaret Kimberly, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hi.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Happy Festivus.
Thank you so much. I've never celebrated Festivus before, so this is great.
Have you ever? Well, are you familiar with what it's from?
I do. I am. Yes, okay. I do remember.
Because I know that it's a very sort of like specific niche of people that are familiar with Seinfeld, that a lot of people weren't necessarily fans of that show. So
I don't want to make any presumptions, but our other guest that is joining us right now.
Oh, he gets mistaken for
Larry.
He's
a dead ringer for the man who created Seinfeld. So
Larry David.
If it is entirely possible, he is the professor at UW Green Bay. His boys are playing your boys on Sunday, by the way.
What boys?
The Packers play the Dolphins on Christmas Day.
Boys, for God's sake. Okay.
Harvey K., welcome back to Generational Change.
It's great to be here. And no, I have never met Margaret before. So
this is a good connection.
But I will tell you, Margaret, I'm glad you remember about Seinfeld, so to speak. They may recall that I'm not a fan of Seinfeld.
I know. I know you're not, but you look like Larry David. Like I could see that people would see you and think that you could have a Larry David resemblance.
Yeah, I've been in shopping malls where people say, "Oh my God, are you Larry David?" Yeah.
You're like, no, I'm better. Here, read my book, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to leverage
I will say, by the way, my younger daughter who lives in New York City, she is a big fan, has always been a fan of Larry David and loved Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And whenever we were together, I would enjoy Curb Your Enthusiasm, mostly because of her enthusiasm. But and then the other night we were talking, I said, oh, by the way, I'm doing Festivus on Friday night with Jen Perelman and Peter again. And she said, I know you hate Seinfeld, and you know what? Yeah. I've come to hate him too because of you.
Oh, that's so harsh. That's
sweet.
So harsh. But you guys have a lot more in common than not, for sure. I mean, but I wasn't kidding when I was telling Osiris we're all going to the left now. So everybody here is definitely like in that line. And Margaret was on not that long ago regarding our Deconstructing Zionism series that I'm working on, Harvey, and talking about the connection between Black liberation and Palestinian solidarity, because that was just something that I thought was important. And Harvey is very big into the 21st century Bill of Rights and expanding what FDR was talking about. So you guys are both kind of like history wonky too.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Margaret, where do you live?
Oh,
I'm in New York City. I'm in Harlem.
Oh, in Harlem. Okay.
Yep.
If I have a grievance, not with you or Harlem or anything like that, it's that last week we flew to New York City on Wednesday night to see our daughter and her husband. They got married this past summer, and they live in Greenpoint across the river. And she had self-tested because she thought she had a cold for COVID. So she tested. And then the next night, when she still wasn't feeling very well, she remembered, oh, wait, I took a test at a clinic. I should just call them. And she had COVID.
Oh, no.
So the next morning, we had to fly home to Wisconsin. So that's my grievance.
That's your grievance? Okay, that's a personal grievance.
And then I'll add to that, speaking of Miami.
Because you have bigger grievances than that. Like I've heard you with much more macro grievances.
Well, yeah, no doubt about it.
I mean, grievances against COVID. I mean, don't we all, right?
Right. Yeah. So, Margaret, that is the key. That is the main first point. What we do on Festivus is it's called the airing of grievances. And it's generally, how does he do it? You know, how does that?
I got a lot of problems with you people. And tonight, you're going to hear about it.
So that was Jerry Stiller doing that in the thing. And so that's everybody goes around and basically airs their grievances. And I think the point of that is more for against each other. But we're gonna do it just in general. So do you have a good grievance, Margaret?
I have so many.
Okay.
I wish, sometimes I'm in this mood now. I feel like ignorance is bliss. I know too much. So I have so many grievances. I'm like, I hope Zelensky went home already. I wish we didn't have a maniac mayor. It's like,
yeah, you really do.
Oh, so has something happened with this guy? I know we were not supportive and not a fan back in their race.
No, well, why don't you, Margaret, would you please air your grievances about Mayor Adams? Because I think a lot of people would appreciate hearing more.
I would.
Okay, well, we have a mayor who's not very bright, just to be blunt about it. He's a former cop. He still has a cop mentality. He talks about crime all the time. Crime actually is better. I've lived in New York since the 80s, and there have been other times when
I really slogan. Crime is better.
Better crime in New York. But I talk about how dangerous the city is, and it's like he makes it seem like this dystopian hellscape, which it isn't. He helped the Republicans with this talking point. The Democrats lost control of the House because Republicans flipped these seats in New York. This crazy man Zeldin almost beat the Democratic, who I'm not crazy about herself, but by talking about crime all the time. And he shows no leadership on any important issues. He's not thoughtful. He doesn't have a big vision. Everybody on his team is as dim as he is. So I really feel like I actually counted, he's the 6th mayor that I have gone through in this city. And he's the one who's the dumbest. I have to say.
Wow.
He's horrible in every way.
And my understanding from having been in the city just for that little bit is, and I saw this probably after I left the city, he has now made the point of saying that vast sums of money will be cut from the budget for libraries and other social services.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't want to take away from your grievance, but I think the whole New York Democratic Party is grounds for a grievance.
They are really, I'm glad I'm not a Democrat anymore.
Right. Margaret's not a Democrat.
It's like, oh my God, they made the case for me. These Cuomo cronies are still around running the Democratic Party. They lost those seats. They lost these ballot initiatives last year that Republicans campaigned against. I mean, they are really, their whole ethos is beating up on progressives. That's what they do.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what they see their goal is keeping progressives out of office. And if one should sneak in, making sure they don't do anything progressive. So they were very much not interested in fighting Republicans. So they lost these seats. Excuse me. And Governor Hochul, Cuomo's successor, she's awful. She's horrible.
Who's this judge she's appointing? Who's a
conservative judge?
Anti-choice and anti-labor.
To the state Supreme Court. These people are dreadful. She gave, I think it was $1 billion for a stadium in Buffalo? She's from Buffalo. Yeah. Of course, all these sports teams are owned by billionaires, but they always have their hand out.
I'm dead set.
No, but when you say Buffalo, that brings to mind. You want to talk about what made me, I think, just have no care in the world for your Democratic Party was how they treated India Walton. Because when that happened, like the fact that she won the primary and they still did that against her, I'm like, this is not
one of these guys I'm talking about, Jay Jacobs.
Oh, horrible.
He did, because she defeated the mayor of Buffalo in a primary, and they did everything they could to. I mean, the mayor was a Democrat. I can understand that, but to call this Black woman akin to the KKK because she beat one of the establishment Democrats. So these people are absolutely dreadful, and they need to get rid of them. And some Democratic elected officials have started to speak out against them, but it's a little late. A lot of damage has been done. So people behind their names in New York are I have many grievances against them.
Harvey, what happened?
I want to footnote something or sidebar something Margaret just said, which is fundamentally, essentially true, but not always true. The sports teams are not always owned by billionaires.
Okay, here we go. Please. Yes, let's do this because it's very important. Okay.
There's one thing that the Packers have over the Dolphins.
Let us please address this because I please say it because it's important.
Margaret, I don't know if you realize, but the Green Bay Packers are actually
owned by the city. Yes.
Well, actually by the fans.
So the people of Green Bay actually own them.
The city owns the stadium. The team itself is owned in a trust fashion. And those of us who have shares of stock, which we bought over the many years, do not receive dividends on it. It's more of a community commitment. But the point is that there is no owner other than the tens of thousands of people who have that stock, and they can't move the team. I mean, it's unique. Or as one New York Times columnist wrote maybe 10 or 20 years ago, socialism is alive and well in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Very good. I'm glad. I was about to say, I was going to make a little joke. Sounds socialistic, but it's a great team. Always a winner. I don't know how they're doing this year. I haven't been.
This is a bad year.
Oh, really?
I'm rooting against them right now. I'm feeling anti-cheese.
This Sunday at noon. And by the way, my New York City daughter and son-in-law are right now waiting in LaGuardia to fly down to Miami. Okay, for this game and to see his side of the family a bit. Well, he's actually from New York, but they're down there wintering.
Are they going to be there as Green Bay fans?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're both fanatic Green Bay fans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are you Miami fans really shitty people? Are they going to get bumped around and beaten?
No, because here's the thing about Miami people. The people who are Miami fans come from two different types of people, right? You're either townies like me, who's second generation, like my dad had season tickets from the beginning, or people that have transplanted from places like New York and Boston, all those people. Now, keep in mind, the nicer ones are now Dolphins fans. Otherwise, you're looking at Patriots fans. You see what I'm saying? Or Jets fans. Yeah. So the people that are the Dolphins fans are the nice versions of those people. Because and as long as you're not coming into our,
This is not, Harvey, this is not like going into Soldier Field.
No.
Totally different.
No, we don't
I'm
hate.
not even sure Soldier Field's about the work, but I shouldn't carry us into sports.
We're only mean to Patriots fans.
The infamous stadium is where the Eagles play, the Philadelphia.
Oh, well, yes, I would say that the two, as a Giants fan, I could tell you my only experience ever traveling to an NFL stadium where I actually had an issue with fans was at the Link in Philadelphia. That was difficult.
Well, it's funny. I used to I come from a big sports loving family. And so I grew up with football, men, women, everybody liked sports, but I stopped some years back for a variety of reasons. And but I still hate the Patriots. Despite my lack of following football, I still hate them.
That's how I feel.
Have to. And it's so silly. It's like, I don't watch it anymore.
No, it's not. And in fact, I say this every season, like I don't have any extra hate for any other team because all of my sports hate is aimed at the Patriots. So it's like, I don't hate the Jets anymore. I don't hate the Bills. I don't hate other teams in the division. We just all equally hate the Patriots. The other day, where were we when I was with my friend somewhere and we were at the bagel shop and somebody was talking something and I'm like, but we all hate the Patriots, and like, hell yeah. Like, so I don't even know what teams they were talking about, but everyone universally
considering the season the Patriots are having right now and considering the loss that they took the other day, which is an all-time, this is like the all-time gaff loss of, the backward, you have to see the play. It's a backward lateral. And of course it happened against the Raiders, a team that usually is the team that does.
Again, I have no opinion on any other team other than I love my Dolphins and I hate the Patriots.
I actually
I
love the Packers. Let me make that clear. That goes all the way back well before I ever got to Green Bay.
Before we
But continue, I do want to say I do hate the NFL overall.
I'm sure you do. It does not surprise me in the least that you do.
I love the NFL. I hate most of the NFL owners, and I think we can all agree on that because they're all a bunch of greedy billionaires and just figuring out their own way to screw the American worker. And it's been happening.
Harvey, we have a friend of yours here.
He's everybody's
friend. Oh, that's right. That's right. He connects all. Actually, this is who connects the two of you.
And considering where this gentleman is located, he can definitely attest to the fact that M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore was built on the back of the working class taxpayers.
Now it's really funny to me that you guys have never met because you're both connected to this person.
Max Alvarez, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. And I was shouting in the green room, yeah, fuck the Patriots.
Joint grievance.
That's a good grievance.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That is a perennial grievance of mine as well. So, yeah, happy holidays to all of us.
Well, as a Ravens fan, you are one of the few fan bases that did get the best of Belichick and Tom Brady a number of times, including at Foxborough in the playoffs twice, I believe.
It always comes down to
sports is
Mac,
life.
Are you now a Ravens fan?
I'm like a fair weather Ravens supporter. I'm a beleaguered Bears fan at heart.
That's what I remember.
But we don't have a whole lot to celebrate. Right now, I'm just licking my wounds because I lost my boy Jonathan Taylor in the middle of the fantasy playoffs, so I'm screwed.
I'm in the semifinal round. I am favored to make it to the championship game. So I have survived. Max, I survived Breece Hall's ACL injury. I was able to pick up McKinnon from Kansas City, so I'm in pretty good shape.
Okay.
That was your personal Vietnam.
Now I have another grievance. It's too much. I don't know what you're talking about.
Fantasy football cannot count as an actual grievance. Okay, no, we're talking.
Well, you know what? If we're going to talk about a real grievance, this is the labor panel. This was specifically done because we need to air the grievances on behalf of the railroad workers of this country, who literally took the shaft from I'm the greatest labor president this country's ever seen. President Biden, who everyone is touting as some great president, which he's not.
Wait, Margaret, are you working on the next chapter in your book for him? Please tell me you're working on.
Actually, I am. Good. Yes.
Because I am curious to see what that chapter looks like from the presidential perspective.
This whole thing with the railroad workers and this phony vote, he could give them paid sick time with an executive order.
Exactly.
And it's like, and this whole thing with these phony progressives was the best deal we could get. It's the best thing we could do was the only vote. You didn't need to vote. and this covering for him, and the way the corporate media cover for him, and never say what I just said. Because Obama's executive order, he signed an executive order which forced all federal contractors to provide sick days, but it specifically excluded railroad workers. So all Biden has to do is his own executive orders and put railroad workers in it. That's it. That's all.
Yeah. No. It's amazing to me and horrifying to think that I mean, I know, Max, you've been covering all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's really astonishing that Biden could get away with. You would have thought, I mean, just seriously, however much we were talking before about the New York Democratic Party corralling and disciplining progressives. Seriously speaking, the National Democratic Party sets the model, and the Congress is the prime example of it. Yeah. Because there is no way that something calling itself the Progressive Caucus should ever have allowed Biden to get away with this stunt. No, not. I mean, it's unfathomable.
Harvey, you've seen the people that are in the Progressive Caucus, right? Okay, but have you seen the people, the lineup of the Congressional Progressive Caucus? Because it's very entertaining. There might be a couple of progressives in there. I don't know. It's pretty pathetic.
I really, really do understand what you're saying. I mean,
there's like 100 and something. Where are those people? Where are those progressives?
Well, I'm sure you think of Chantel Brown is a leading progressive, right?
Well, she's in the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
That's
so it's ridiculous.
I call them the Twitter progressives. They always go on Twitter and say, we should have Medicare for all, or we should have something that they have no intention of fighting for. And I have the same response. I always say, you should run for Congress. Maybe you could help us with that. I do it over and over again, but it's really, they're all for show. They keep their goal is to keep the left in the Democratic Party, and it's just the height of cynicism, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know that I agree with all of that. It's been very frustrating. I've been reflecting on this a lot, right? Because I feel like I imagine all of us are in the same boat. I've just been going a mile a minute all year, and like today was like the first day that I got to actually sort of like sit and reflect. So there's been like a jumble of emotions catching up with me, and I was reflecting on the fact that I mean, like, at the Real News Network, I and my colleague Mel Buer have been covering the crisis on the railroads all year, right? Through extended interview after extended interview with workers in different parts of the industry, people who've been in the industry for different lengths of time, right? I mean, just really hearing their stories and then trying to get people to pay attention to those, only to have like the mainstream media and the politicians in DC suddenly take an interest when we were like literally at the 11th hour before a potential rail shutdown, both in September and earlier this month. And, I think that a lot of folks have been asking me of late, like, well, what could Democrats have done different, like in that situation? And I guess the thing that I would just sort of say, and this kind of goes to Margaret's point, is like, frankly, there's only so much that any politician could do in that point. And I think that everyone has a stain on their record by the fact that they didn't give a shit about this until it was at the last minute, right? Like none of this was new. This stuff has been going on for longer than like the current stints of anyone in Congress, except like maybe like the old fogies. But like railroad workers and unions and the Surface Transportation Board, Marty Oberman, chairman, have been like screaming about this for years, saying like, hey, billionaires like Warren Buffett are literally destroying the supply chain by running workers into the ground, by price gouging their own customers and jacking up prices on shippers. The ports are backed up to hell and everyone is pissed off about it. And yet the billionaires who own these companies are raking in more profits than they ever have. Stock buybacks and shareholder dividends are higher than they've ever been. Like, this is not a new problem. But when you have two ruling class serving parties that genuinely don't actually care about working people, but just want to sort of kind of make a symbolic show of who's a greater friend of the worker, capital F, capital W, it's just all some BS like cosplaying that I'm frankly like fed up with, right? Because there are ways that actually the Democrats, Biden, Congress, like, could have done more to help railroad workers if they actually gave a shit about this issue back when negotiations were still going on, right? Think about how the situation played out. And apologies to anyone if you've heard me like kind of make this point before, but I think it's important, right? If you are the railroad carriers, right, who have been destroying a vital part of our supply chain for years because your Wall Street backers have recognized you can juice a lot of profit out of it at the expense of workers, at the expense of consumers, at the expense of everyone but the shareholders, right? If that is your MO, right, and no one is doing anything to stop you, what incentive do you have to stop? What incentive do you have to even bargain in good faith? Like the contract negotiations that led us to the point of a potential national rail strike or rail lockout have been going on for 3 years. And all the while, these carriers have just been able to sit at the table, cross their arms, because they knew if it ever got to this point, whether it was Biden or George Bush, like whoever was in office was going to side with the rail bosses, just like they did in 92. They were going to shove a deal down workers' throats. They weren't going to address any of the key workplace safety issues, quality of life issues, like any of the issues that like really kind of that workers have been saying like comprise the total crisis that they are experiencing on the railroads. It's not just sick days. Sick days became kind of the stand-in for the larger crisis, and we couldn't even address that, right? Even though we very well could, and Biden very well could right now if he damn well wanted, but he doesn't. And so again, think about the position that we were in the long run. If Biden had been using the bully pulpit, if any people in Congress had been like making a stink about the corporate, you know, robbery that is playing out in front of us in broad daylight, if they had been putting actual pressure on the rail carriers, highlighting their, you know, corporate malfeasance, maybe that would have given workers a bit more leverage at the bargaining table, because it would have put in the carriers' heads, oh shit, maybe this is a more pro-union Democratic Party. Maybe they do actually care about the workers. Maybe we should give a little more instead of constantly trying to take and take and take. And so they didn't do that, obviously. And then we ended up in the situation we were in September and December, where suddenly, you know, everyone's heart bleeds for the workers, but they got to make like tough decisions. Like, no, like again, to Margaret and Harvey's point, if you weren't fucking tweeting all the goddamn time, if you weren't like actually just concerned about manicuring your public image, if you actually dug deep and did what you can using your position to support the workers who put you in office, maybe we would be in a better position. Maybe the coal miners at Warrior Met Coal, who have been on strike for over 600 days, would have more leverage at the bargaining table if any Democratic or Republican politician was actually showing up to help them. None really have. Right now, it is sub-zero temperatures, and workers at CNH Industrial in Iowa and Wisconsin are on the picket line, freezing their asses off. They need help. They need people to donate to their hardship funds, their strike funds, and all of that. But what they also need is people in the media and in DC giving a shit about this, because if they don't, bosses are just going to keep waiting workers out. They're going to wait for the public attention to fade away. Like this, I guess, is my airing of grievances, if it wasn't already clear, right? Is that we all have a role to play here. We all have to have sustained attention in these struggles. We have to be there when it counts. When people are freezing their asses off on the picket line, they need to know that we're still behind them. And it's baffling to me that the railroads have just disappeared from public consciousness in the span of like 2 weeks, when it was all anyone was talking about before.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not convenient for people to think about that. If the railroad workers went on strike, well, you know, then people wouldn't get what they want immediately. Like, it's very upsetting to me, the whole concept of that. The whole concept of a strike is, fuck you, we're not taking it anymore, and we are the power here, and we're going to go do this. And the fact that we've created a system where people need permission basically to strike. And it's almost like the fact that the executive branch can shut it down, that defeats the whole purpose of the concept of a labor uprising. Like, the whole thing is ridiculous to me. The fact that any Democrat would look at this and not think, this hasn't happened to labor since Reagan, basically. I mean, like, this is ridiculous, and nobody's pointing it out. And I actually get emails from people inside the party, like, praising Biden and I'm thinking, are we watching the same thing? Like, what are you praising him for? But I want to just say, in terms of airing of grievances, I think we can say that this year specifically, the railroad situation is definitely in my top 3 grievances as to how that was handled or not handled. And I agree. It doesn't matter who's in that office. Nobody's going to allow them to strike.
Right. I also have a grievance about the media. I mean, there has been the networks, they clearly were siding with the railroad, siding with Biden, hostile questions to the union representatives. These great newspapers, quote unquote, New York Times, Washington Post, never clearly spelled out how this could be resolved in favor of the workers. They're mouthpieces for the ruling class. That is the only way I can describe the corporate media, that these very simple points that we've all made are just buried. And unless you know where to look, you don't know any of this.
Yeah, we're fighting. And I know it isn't just sick days, quite honestly, but Max, whatever it is, right, that these workers are wanting, I have no doubt is completely reasonable and within the realm of what working people should have, right? Like nothing we're talking about, the fact that they're fighting over it, that's shameful. Because whatever it is, and I don't need to know every little technical point of it, I am sure that it is all within the realm of how workers should just be treated in general. And that our president would step in and say, yeah, no, just, be happy with the crumbs that you're getting and go home. It's insulting.
And it is amazing how, collectively trained SEALs, the vote blue no matter who crowd really is. They say, oh, it's all the Republicans' fault. And I said, the president asked for a bill to prevent workers from striking. Like, what universe are we living? I mean, honestly, like Margaret, when you first came on, you said, it must be good to be stuck in the matrix. I'm like, yeah, I guess for them it is, because they just will not look at reality. The reality is we have a shitty president, and the worst possible time to have a shitty president is when a populist uprising on the right, which can lead to fascism, is happening because people are getting sick of this shit. And
please understand that you could see this in a few of the Republicans who voted, in quotes, on the side of the workers. Okay, the right-wing populists like Hawley, okay, who have been smart these last few years. I mean, I've written about Hawley in particular. They are making a gamble that they can pull off this kind of right-wing populism without necessarily screwing capitalism. And that is Hawley has ambitions, but generally speaking, he's not viewed well by a lot of the corporate, which is the overwhelming majority of the Republican congressional seat holders. He's not viewed favorably, but there are others like him. He knows how Reagan got elected.
Yes.
Because Carter screwed the working class, and workers did not turn out to vote in 1980, and Reagan beat Carter. So, and what Hawley figures is, as he develops this following, and we already know that workers, white, black, and brown, are slowly but surely sort of bleeding away from the Democrats and voting Republican. These folks are going to be smart. As long as the Democrats are only worried about their upper middle class suburban voters, they'll lose the working class. And, frankly, I wouldn't blame any of them for not turning out to vote, given what they've seen. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And this is something that I think is needs to be on all of our radars kind of moving forward. Right? Because obviously Republicans are going to be Republicans. They're going to cynically try to court a betrayed workforce. And it was the Democrats who betrayed them. Right? So like, there's no way to deal with that situation by just pretending like the Democrats didn't betray workers. Workers aren't stupid. They know they got betrayed. If you were trying to convince them to stick with the Democratic Party, you should at least give people the respect of acknowledging that they're not dodo birds, right? And they know what's happening to them and they can see what's in front of their faces.
They're not stupid, and they have memories.
We have memories. Yeah. I mean, like, and I think that I hope that those memories serve us well when we're also evaluating the claims made by Republican lawmakers, right? Josh Hawley's a great example. You're right, Harvey. I mean, he's a very shrewd operative, right? He knows the waters he's swimming in. And if you get sucked into the presentism of his performance, right? If you just look at what he's presenting you in the immediate term, you might be convinced by him. But if you just look at his goddamn voting record for 2 seconds, you'll see that this guy will sell you down the river the second he gets the chance to. He just had another layup vote. He voted against the workplace, the Pregnant Workers Protection Act. Like, how big of a slam dunk is that? Or like, it's not even a slam dunk. It's just like, should pregnant workers like have additional provisions so that they don't have to lift as much heavy shit, or they can sit down a little bit more? Like, in any civilized country, this would not even be a discussion, and yet here in the good old US of A, it is. And not only that, Josh Hawley voted against it, right? So like, again, that's just one small example of how they don't give a shit about you. They really, really don't. And I think like it's important for us to recognize that, because like, the more that Democrats give Republicans these layups where like Ted Cruz can fist bump Bernie Sanders and act as if he is like some sort of, like blue collar whisperer, like that shit drives me nuts. Like, because I'm like, these guys do not want to do anything to help you. The Republicans have been actively fighting to kill the National Labor Relations Board. It may still be the case. It was a couple months ago, but the most amount of Republican complaints that had been filed against a single agency during Biden's term were filed against the NLRB. Like, they hate that thing. They want to kill it. They do not want workers to be able to organize and build power in their workplace, to be able to freely exercise their human rights, like organizing without fear of being fired or retaliated against with surveillance, so on and so forth. Again, this is real basic shit, but yet the NLRB, because Republicans hate it so much, hasn't had its budget raised in a decade. And yet we finally got a budget increase this week. I think we'll know by the end of midnight or by midnight tonight, but it should be there. But even then, this is a perfect example. So Republicans have been fighting to kill this thing. Thus, the budget hasn't been raised in 10 years. Inflation keeps going up. So essentially, its budget has gotten slashed every year over the past 10 years. So what is the Democrats, solution to it? Not raise it for 9 years and then raise it $25 million, which is like way less than anyone was asking for, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to be enough for the NLRB. Again, the beating institutional heart that is supposed to be able to safeguard people's democratic rights in the workplace. And it does the best that it can with what it has, but things move so slowly through the NLRB. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough resources to deal with all the unfair labor practice charges coming in from Starbucks. All the organizers who are getting fired, the stores that are getting closed. Like, it's a mess. So again, this just goes to like, if the Democrats really wanted to prove to people that they are a pro-union party or they are pro-worker, these are tangible things they can do to actually support the people who are supporting workers. I don't need you to be out there like, leading the labor movement. I just need you to not be getting in the fucking way of it. And that's what Democrats have been doing for so long, right?
Yeah. Well, it occurs to me that in this country, that's the whole purpose of the party system. The whole purpose of the party system is to basically be the facade that allows us to think that we're actually having a voice as the working class, when in fact we do not. And maybe at some point, there have been points in the history where we did have some more labor-oriented people in parties and labor had more of a voice politically, but we're just not there now. So what we're talking, like, let's just strip away, because you guys all understand this very well, let's just strip away the Democrat and Republican thing for a second and look at it like a real left and right situation. And if we did that, and you had it where, okay, we're fighting for the workers, that would be the left. And then you would have this sort of authoritarian dictatorship all the way on the right. And I think that the parties interfere with everybody's ability to understand that we're all the proletariat, okay? Like, this is a class where we're all over here, and these parties do a very good job, both of them, of convincing certain people that they're not with us. So if you just, maybe you could be like us, maybe you could be a billionaire like Elon Musk, if only you do this and you vote with us, and they don't see it.
I
Those
promise
parties,
if I'm ever a billionaire, I will not be like Elon Musk.
you couldn't ever be a billionaire because you're not willing to do what it takes to become a billionaire.
You're not a sociopath, Harvey, although maybe
But
you are.
I also think we have to acknowledge there's collusion between the two parties.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's like professional wrestling where people allegedly are enemies when they really aren't. They play to certain issues, so Republicans will convince people that kids are being groomed or something like that. Instead of actually doing anything for people, Democrats will say, I'm for a woman's right to choose, except when they can prove it and do something about it. But we have an oligarchy in this country, and they run the duopoly. And I think that is the sad
collusion. And the collusion is a fabulous theater. It's because the collusion takes the form of a conflict.
Right. Well, I was going to say, Margaret, you don't believe that the real impediment to progress has been Joe Manchin? Because we here believe that we need to vote Manchin parliamentarian in 24 because these are the people with the real party and the power in the party. These are the Democrats because all of the things couldn't happen because of Joe Manchin.
Sure. No parliamentarian, Manchin cinema. There's always a bad cop. Right. We would do this if it weren't for, fill in the blank bad cop this year.
What if there were no parties and just all the working class people and the people that, realize it's really a very small group at the top and we're not invited and it's the rest of us? What if that happened? Because if all the people in the Republican Party and all the people in the Democratic Party who really did believe the same things but have been lied to and pulled into these tribal things where they don't even know what they believe anymore, because most people don't even know what their party stands for, what's left versus right. They know talking points from Fox News and MSNBC, and they sit there and fight with each other when they don't even understand this shit. So if there were no parties and we just said, okay, all the people who think that working people should be able to live nicely for working 40 hours a week, all come over here, it would be a very different grouping that we would have.
Did I ever tell you on this program about my effort to get a leading member of the Progressive Caucus to introduce the idea of a 21st century economic bill of rights to the caucus? Have I told you about my encounter?
No. Okay, so wait, first so Margaret, I don't know if you're familiar, but Harvey and Alan Minsky created this 21st century bill of rights. Well, you didn't create it, you added to what was FDR's.
Right, and there are other academics from Mark Paul, young guy, to Derek Hamilton, who's up at New School for Social.
So it's this idea that is like this 21st century bill of rights. By the way, message before I forget, Steve Grumbine really needs to talk to you one-on-one about something having to do with history and FDR, and I'm high, so that's as good as you're going to get right now. Okay. So, but that's the premise, Margaret, of the 21st century bill of rights, just so you know where he's going with this story.
I mean, it's an economic bill of rights, 21st century economic bill of rights for all Americans, which would include, just so you understand, such things as a guaranteed job at a living wage, guaranteed right to organize a union and bargain collectively, guaranteed national health care, guaranteed comfortable housing. I mean, it's all of the things that people need and that the overwhelming majority of Americans, whether they're Republican or Democrats, actually believe should happen. So anyhow, at an event last year, I figured I had an opportunity to go to talk one-on-one with a member of the Progressive Caucus. I can't offer that person's name because it was meant to be a completely off the record conversation.
Okay.
So I would love to, just because of what happened. So I will say it's a him. Okay.
Okay.
So I said to him, here's the secret. I explained this stuff to him, and he looked at me. You know how when you're talking to a congressional representative and they really don't want to talk to you, it's like a glazing effect, right?
Yes.
And he said but then I could tell, and I said to him, wait, if we walk down Main Street in any city, and most cities will be where Democratic voters are, so it's not like I'm prejudicing this. If we walk down that street and we stop people and ask them, what does the Democratic Party stand for? They will first not be able to answer, and then they'll answer us in the Republican talking points terms. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And I said, this economic bill of rights would be a dynamic force for the Progressive Caucus inside of the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has no story and no vision.
None.
Okay. And an agenda is not enough. People forget what's in an agenda. Okay. So, and he turned to me and he said, I swear to God, he turned to me and he said, you know, Nancy always says our values win elections. Nancy Pelosi.
We knew who you meant.
Okay. Well, wait. So understand, this is a progressive who was fully aware of where I stand politically. And he had the fucking audacity to quote Nancy Pelosi to me. But it's not that. I mean, that was the silly part of what I said.
This is not a real progressive. This is just someone in that caucus, is what you're saying.
Well, actually, I can tell you, this is a person who's actually headed the caucus.
Okay, you're kind of like
I'm about to give away. He also.
Now
I know. I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. Well, because people think he's a progressive, and I'm just like, all of a sudden that name gets thrown around, and I'm thinking, no, he's not.
He's supposed to be the labor guy in the Progressive Caucus.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
The truth is, Wisconsin, I always say, is one of the best examples of a state that should be extremely populist. And in many ways it is, but it's finding itself to the GOP almost every time.
Because the Democrats don't offer them anything.
Democrats don't even spend money to win.
No, and the GOP are much better snake oil salesmen. It's not hard. It's not hard to see how it's happening.
I always remember this little factoid. The Democrats lost 900 seats across the country when Obama was in office, in state houses, in Congress.
Who was the chair of the Democratic National Committee at that time? I just want to hear it just one time.
It was Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It was just saying. That's
So they don't care. They really do not care that a state like Wisconsin, there's no reason why Democrats should be. I think they have a Democratic governor, but mostly Republicans who thwart everything the governor does.
Okay, so I'll tell you, I said before, working class people are neither stupid nor lack memory. And basically speaking, they may not be able to give you the details, but they will never forget who it was that gave them NAFTA.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, why would they trust the Democrats?
Oh, no.
By the way,
no idea what you've just unleashed. You all know.
Well, if you decided to talk about what I passed back in 1993, I have to admit that it may not have been good for you, but it was really good for me. Jen, how you doing? Look, I've passed a lot of legislation in my life.
Oh, yeah.
They always want to talk about what the GOP did and how I had to negotiate with Mr. Gingrich all those years, but never forget what we did during our first 2 years. We got NAFTA. We started our normal trade relations with China. We got our crime bill. We set in motion the opportunity to pass that wonderful Telecom Act legislation. And then when Newt got in there, we did it even better. You know what we did when Newt came into office? We managed to work together to unravel Glass-Steagall. I mean, come on, how much better could my presidency have possibly been?
Well, hey, Bill, you fucked up one thing. You failed to privatize Social Security.
Look, we came really, really close to privatizing Social Security, and the only reason we did not do that is because Slick Willie got a little too handsy with an intern, and as it turns out, I paid for it dearly. But
if anyone doesn't know, the story is that when the story broke, it was at a time when Newt Gingrich's personal life was he had no desire to face the consequences of his own personal life's, unraveling, and they just couldn't go ahead with it.
Well, I do understand that, Newt and I had quite a bit in common. We certainly had our competition, if you know what I mean. But ultimately, the decision was made that our triangulation of politics in America was going to do everything in its capacity to make sure that the workers absolutely got screwed. But the great news is that I got rich. Hillary, well, she tried and she failed. And, at least the American people weren't stupid enough to put us in there for a third term. But, man, we really would have enjoyed that power.
You should be in prison.
There is no such thing as prison. You see, this is the thing. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just explain one thing to all of y'all. There's a reason why the Clintons will never go down. I passed the crime bill. I am the answer to all the problems in this country. There's a reason. When we pass this wonderful bill,
somebody get the cane and
I can't go. You're gross.
When we incarcerate Black and brown people for the sake of profit, you really think they would ever put me in prison?
Go away.
Come on. And a very happy Festivus to each and every one of y'all. Bye. So there you go.
By the way, can I just say my biggest grievance of the past 30 years?
Yeah.
Is that man.
Yes. Oh.
And I've been around the heads, if you will, of the Florida Democratic Party. Our previous party chair, and listen, I got along with Terry Rizzo, but I can tell you that when I brought up Bill Clinton, she's like, "But he's such a charming man." I'm like, "Who gives a shit?"
Well, for me, it's him and Obama. That
absolutely
those two together.
Wait, sorry, Carter, Clinton, Obama.
Yeah,
well, we haven't had any real. I mean, I'm one of my great embarrassments. I guess it's a grievance against myself is that I voted for Bill Clinton. I look back, I was like, oh my God. I mean,
two of us. Yeah,
me too.
It's so embarrassing.
Oh, Harvey. So Margaret's book is called Prejudential, and each chapter is a president. It's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was looking. I haven't seen the book yet, but I did. When I saw Margaret was going to be on, I double checked the title of the book.
Yeah, it's really good, and she does her own audiobook too. Yep, there it is.
We have time for one more topic, and what I think is important to discuss, because we mentioned this on the first panel, and this is something Jen and I have been talking about at length. I think we need some form of a national labor council. Now, what that looks like, I think the fine-tooth details, if you will, need to be worked out. But my theory is that even though things are really bad right now, there are tons and tons of labor organizing going around the country, whether it's at Starbucks, whether it's at Amazon. We really need to see it happen at Walmart and a lot of other places in between. There are also people in local unions, bigger unions. I'm not talking about union bosses or delegates. I'm talking about labor organizers, union organizers, people like that. Where
beyond the ground people.
The working council that needs to come together. We had a gentleman on our show a few months ago that is one of the head of the Teamsters Union, and he made it very clear that they have progressive ideals regarding living wage, paid sick leave, universal health care, civil liberties. He has just as many Trump supporters as he does Bernie supporters in the union. Labor is the great equalizer, and right now, labor is what changes the economic infrastructure of the United States. No matter what issues the Republicans and Democrats are fighting on, they're not fighting on labor issues. They're fighting on wedge issues that don't change the infrastructure of our economy and of our politics. But when labor comes to the forefront, they get together like nobody's business to screw workers. Evidence, of course, with what happened with the railroad workers. What do you guys think about potentially trying to formulate some type of a national labor council for whatever the goal may be? People will talk about a general strike, but as far as I'm concerned, it's about uniting labor against the oligarchy that is running our country. Your thoughts on that as we wind it down?
Sounds okay as long as it's not connected to electoral politics.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. The Democratic Party has to come to us.
I want clarification. Just tell me what you mean by not connected to labor, to electoral politics. That's all I
Well, the best example was the Sunrise Movement. The Sunrise Movement did an excellent job of electing non-corporate representatives, particularly Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush. They really made the difference in those particular elections. Yes, I know, Margaret, but the point is they ultimately decided to get in bed with Biden. And they did that with no guarantees whatsoever. They basically decided it's okay for us to become part of the Democratic, thinking we're going to have, the Elizabeth Warren, we're going to have a seat at the table. That doesn't do anything. If you are either making policy and enacting what is needed for labor, then there is no point. You basically become a free agent, almost like that third party that people desperately want. As you always say, we need a party of labor in this country. And we don't have it.
Everybody here says that.
So if we have the ability to basically sway elections based on what is and isn't being done, that to me, I think could be extremely powerful. And that's ultimately, it's almost like the Eugene Debs, if you will, movement that led to the policies of Teddy and especially of FDR. That only happened because a galvanized labor movement happened in this country over the course of several years. And then eventually things started to materialize, and it had nothing to do with electoral politics.
Yeah, no, actually, if I can, just for the record, because you're making the mistake that too many people on the left make.
Okay.
No FDR, you would not have had the labor movement you now have. Okay, because the National Labor not the National Labor Relations Act alone, the National Industrial Recovery Act of 1933 already included in it a clause that workers had the right to organize. The capital found its way around it, and that's when they came back and Wagner got the National Labor Relations Act passed. But I do not believe for a moment that this, whatever council you're talking about, should in any way get into bed with politicians. But it is the case that we should not lose sight of the fact that without ultimately shaping legislation, we won't win.
I agree with that.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And just to kind of jump in there with a final thought, because I know we're coming up on time. And it's been great hanging out with y'all and airing some grievances on this most sacred of holidays, Festivus. One parenthetical, maybe we'd save it for another stream, but I was thinking of you guys because our like top performer on the Real News website over the past month is actually a podcast interview I did with Mike Preisner about Ron DeSantis's time in Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
And it's some really fucked up shit. So like, I would recommend folks, it's fair warning, there's an interview with a Guantanamo detainee, so the details get pretty graphic, but it's important listening, especially for a guy who has managed to hide his military, past, I think, quite well. But we're talking about someone who wants to be president in 2 years. So we should know about this stuff. But in terms of labor, the historian Tony Gilpin had a great line this time last year, right? Because we're all rightly excited about the fact that unions, in terms of public favorability, right, are, more supported now than they've been in like my lifetime.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really good. Right. I think that is a sea change in the public's perception, not only of labor unions as such, but also like breaking down that distinction that we really tried to play hard into in the 90s and early aughts of like separating our lives and subjectivities as consumers and workers, right? Citizens and voters and workers, right? I think the more that the oligarchy has been like ripping us off, the more that the proletariat has expanded and working people's wages have been stagnant, cost of living is going up, we're working harder, we're working longer, while the fruits of that productivity are getting siphoned into the pockets of useless fucking billionaires like Elon Musk or Warren Buffett, right? That is the dialectic at work. And so the longer we go in that direction, the more those sorts of boxes that they try to put us in, like they did with the railroads, right? Oh, you as a consumer are about to have Christmas taken away from you because of these greedy workers who are going to go on strike. Less and less people bought into that shit than they had, I think, in the 90s and even in the 80s. Like, that's good. I think that's a really big, significant sea change. But what Tony Gilpin rightly pointed out last year, especially when we're talking about labor's relationship to electoral politics, is that labor does not need to be liked. Labor needs to be feared in that realm, right? And when I say labor, I mean all of us, right? Kind of building on what you were saying, Jen, about us being in the proletariat, or us being in what Rick Wolf called to or said to me on an interview at the Real News, the order taking class, as opposed to the order giving class, right? I really like the way that he puts that, because if you're watching this stream, you are not in the latter. You are not in the order giving class, right? None of us are, right? So it just,
well, there could be a spy for them watching. That is possible,
right? Well, we have Bill Clinton. That's an exception, right? But like in that regard, like we need an independent labor movement that puts the needs of working people at the forefront, right, of the ledger of society's priorities. These aren't things to be negotiated over. These aren't, like quote unquote special interests for certain elected officials to juggle in some sort of, like Rube Goldberg, like political coalition. Like, no, these are non-negotiable necessities that working people are demanding, right? And like they are going to put the fear of God into you, not just because they have a voting bloc that will vote with our class interests first, right? But because we are a powerful force to be reckoned with. That is the missing piece that I hope we carry, the motivation into 2023 to build out that part of this budding kind of revivifying like labor movement, right? That is why I preach so much to folks that this isn't something happening off screen. This isn't something happening in another state. This is happening where you are right now. Your neighbors, your coworkers, the coffee shop that you go into before you go to work, right? That sort of worker unrest is everywhere, and more people in different types of industries are starting to rise up for many of the same reasons. Now, the point that we need to kind of pick up on is we need to connect those, right? Because it actually doesn't happen as much as you would think. Like, just to give one example, and then I promise I'll shut up in a second. I had a live stream at the Real News Network last week that I was very proud of. I had a railroader on, Matt Parker. I fucking love that guy. Engineer out of Reno. I had a striking worker at Case New or CNH Industrial in Iowa, Marcus Derby. We had someone from the University of California strike, someone from the New School strike, someone from one of the newspaper strikes, the one that was going on in Fort Worth, right? We're always told that like these segments of the working class have nothing in common with each other, that one side is the more true blue working class and the other isn't. And like it, even a lot of leftists like love making it seem as if like it's some big logical puzzle to figure out like how can we possibly build a working class coalition. I'm like, it's not that fucking hard. First, just talk to people and also get them in the same room, and we can actually win this thing. Like I said, we had these workers from all over the country, different coal miners. There were Hayden and Braxton Wright were on that call as well from Warrior Met Coal. They were all just talking about how they could support each other, what we could learn from these different struggles, how we could show solidarity and keep these things going, right? And how viewers and listeners could get involved in that. Like, that is not hard. We need to get out of our own heads and stop trying to kind of think about, like this three-dimensional chess and let the theory do too much work. I think we're all, well versed in Marxism and other types of essential theory that give us the framework for understanding the world that we're in. But when it comes to acting concertedly and building power and building solidarity with our fellow workers, you don't need a whole lot of theory getting in the way of that. You just need a bleeding heart, 2 ears, and you need to not be an asshole. Just actually listen to each other, actually care about each other, actually want working people to have a better life. If you have those in your corner, I promise you, you'll be fine. And so I wholeheartedly endorse this idea of building in whatever form it takes, right? At least start building the infrastructure through which different segments of the labor movement and the labor movement to be can start coming in conversation with each other, start learning, start having conversations that are maybe better had amongst ourselves than online, in front of everybody, right? Like these are strategic questions that we have it within us to figure out. And I am heartened by the solidarity I've seen from average people across this country and beyond over the past year, whether it be supporting the railroads, whether it be raising the alarm about UPS drivers dying in their trucks because they don't have air conditioning, right? I mean, like, whether it be people standing on these academic picket lines or calling out Starbucks and Howard Schultz for violating workers' rights. Like, I think that is really exciting. And what we need to carry into 2023, right, is just the understanding that if it builds into a party itself, great. That may not necessarily be like the kind of end result of the kind of working class, cross industry, cross state solidarity building mission that we're talking about here. But what I think we need to understand, and why I find so much hope in the labor movement as such, right, is because everything we've been talking about, everything that throughout the past hour, right? This is the common theme, is that this is what happens when you live in a society where decision-making power is concentrated in the hands of a very select few, a small group of people who are, as Margaret said, working together by and large throughout most of the goddamn year, right? They make a show out of like being enemies when it's convenient for them, but by and large, there is the ruling class and its lackeys serving its interests, and then there's us, right? And we need to advocate for our own interests. And when working people take that fateful step, even just to tell their own manager, hey, you can't talk to me that way, I'm a human being, right? Or, hey, I'm a human being with a life and a sick kid at home. If I'm telling you like I need to go home, I need to go home, right? You know, like you don't get to determine, you know, like the conditions of my humanity just because, you know, you have manager on your goddamn name tag, right? Like doing that changes you. Not accepting and abiding that arbitrary authority changes you. It makes you more the kind of person to realize that you have it within your power to change your circumstances. And you can actually do that at a better, more effective, and bigger level if you work with your fellow workers. And so what I find so hopeful about the labor movement is that if we win, if people through the struggle learn that they can actually change the world that they live in, they don't just have to accept whatever the ruling class gives us or whatever just happens to us by forces beyond our control. The more power we build, the more power we want. And I think that that is why it is so important for us to do whatever we can to make sure working people win, because that starts this kind of catalytic effect that we can be part of. When we can't predict how big that will grow, we saw with the George Floyd protests how big it can get when that many people are motivated and are talking to each other about the same issues. So I think we know what can happen, but we actually have to get in there and do the work, and we can't be relying on any political party to do it for us.
It almost sounds like you had the council all together at one point. Like that's basically what you're talking about. The people that you were saying that you had, that you were speaking to, those are the kinds of people nationally that should get together, rank and file people like that. And just constantly, you know, even just being aware and being able to support different areas when they're in need and bring attention to it is really huge.
Yeah. And you guys have been absolutely fantastic as always. I think these panels need to happen like every couple of months, to be honest.
It's just always fun, but it's only there's only one Festivus.
Well, there is only one Festivus, but we could be talking labor all the time. We are actually.
We can always do it on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, well, a Hallmark holiday.
So, and we didn't necessarily say this, but this is the Festivus pole, because Festivus, you have the pole, and it has to be a plain aluminum pole, because tinsel is very distracting, according to Frank Costanza. Tinsel is very distracting. And we are giving out.
I picked Margaret to whoop Harvey's ass.
Oh! So these are the Festivus pencils that we will be giving out to our top super chats. I have 3 packs of these, and they are really funny, guys. But there's a lot of good Festivus material in here.
You guys have obviously been fantastic. And Max, I will be shooting you a message. We are supposed to have a railroad workers panel very shortly. So I definitely want to keep you posted on that. Margaret, the floor is yours. First, let everybody know what you're working on, how they can find you, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, we'll do a little round.
Sure. We're taking our end of year break at Black Agenda Report, but go to blackagendareport.com. We'll be back on January 4th. Every Wednesday, and you can catch me on Twitter at Freedom Ride Blog. Thank you both.
Oh, awesome. No, you're one of the best people to come on. It's all of you guys are people that, like, the people that we specifically, when I said Festivus, like, I specifically wanted people that are fun people that I like to talk to. You know, we do all different authors and different people, and sometimes it's very serious and professional, but like, I definitely wanted to bring back people that I just think are cool to hang out with. So I appreciate that.
Harvey, go for it.
Okay, I'm doing something that most people will find unreal, but I am making an argument for a big volume that I am not editing but contributing to, that we have failed to appreciate that FDR was actually a radical who was determined to overthrow the remnants of the Gilded Age political order.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I like it.
So where is that? What is that? Is that like, is a project you're working on?
There's a volume that's being produced, a big academic, Princeton University Press, A New History of American Political Thought. These editors from around the country asked 50 people to Well, I got FDR
Yes.
offered to me. 15.
Okay, well, Margaret, that's right up your alley. So like you're gonna, yeah. I mean, this sounds very prejudicial.
Max, clean it, back cleanup.
I know I was late, but did you guys at least mention the fact that Jason Alexander tweeted about Festivus today?
No, but
our Festivus?
Not
yeah,
our
well, not our Festivus, but Jason
No.
Alexander was like, I have to say happy Festivus to everybody. Right.
Yeah,
It was a very nice way to wake up.
Look, in my dream, he'd make like a little cameo here, but we're just not that big.
Maybe year 3. We'll see what the third annual.
We'll catch some momentum, and we'll be able to get him on next year.
Yeah.
So Max, other than
you should get
fighting
me
the
on a
fight,
panel with Jerry Seinfeld. That would be really fun.
I would pay to watch that. So thanks again, for having us on, guys. Happy Festivus to everyone. This has been a lot of fun. I too and the team here at The Real News are taking a much needed break after a very exhausting year. So thank you to everyone who watched, read, listened to, and supported us. We are in our end of year fundraiser right now. So if you want to support our producing of the Chris Hedges Report, the Police Accountability Report, Rattling the Bars, founded by legendary Black Panther and political prisoner Eddie Conway, right? These are weekly productions that we put on. The Mark Steiner Show, my podcast, Working People, like all of that comes from the viewers who support us. So please, if you can, head on over to therealnews.com/support. Support our work.
therealnews.com. You know what? I've been like following that for years now, like for years, back when it was like 2 people doing it. And it's really good, people. I highly recommend checking out The Real News.
Can I just add one other note?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I ever talked about it with you guys. My very first book published back in 1984.
Yeah.
What is it? In a 3rd edition.
All right.
The British
Marxist historians. All right.
Buy my book too while you're at it.
And I love that book. I love that book. I love the people in that book, and I love that they're real. I love the burlesque dancer. I think that's my favorite. I don't know. There's a lot of good characters, but they're real people. But it's really
for
cool.
reading it.
Max, great to see you. Margaret, nice to meet you. Always you 2 Floridians. It's great, but go Pack Go on Sunday.
Oh no.
Margaret Kimberly, Harvey K, Max Alvarez.
Bye,
thanks so
guys.
much, guys. Happy
Bye.
Happy holidays. And we have one final panel.
I know, it's very
because
exciting.
this gentleman is just such a big deal.
You say that, but he's just so normal person. I don't know why it's like such a big deal with that.
Because because we have a lot to catch up on because it has been a while. And this time we're getting him with video and audio. So how do you like that, Apples? Remember last time you didn't have the video.
Oh, that's right, because he had a thing.
He had a thing. But
he
now
had a
he's
thing.
all better. And you guys know him as one of the best streamers out there who is teaching the gaming world about the real economic downtrodden and what it's going to take to succeed. We are big fans of his. I'm sure you are as well. Vosh, welcome back to Generational Change. Audio out.
Audio's out. The thing.
Yes. Because it just fits.
No, it does. Yeah. It's weird we hear static.
Yes. It's not our static.
No, I don't know what it is, but
got it.
Yay! Hi.
Oh, it's always something. It can never be easy. Hello, was that Larry Goddamn Davis?
Okay, that's so funny. You said that. No, but we were talking about how he often gets mistaken. And actually, that's Harvey K. He is a professor at Wisconsin in Green Bay. He's socialist. He's very leftist. We were having like a labor panel and he actually hates Seinfeld because of it basically is the antithesis of everything that he's about. But it's just so funny because everyone thinks he looks like Larry David.
That's a dead ringer. He could make a lot of money with just impersonating him somewhere on Hollywood Boulevard or whatever. Like people just go, oh yeah, $5 an autograph. He could make a lot. He's
had people come up to him. That's what he was saying. Like he's actually had people come up to him and ask him if he's Larry David.
That's incredible. I'd say go for it. Honestly, there's no higher honor. than just making it all off like a Seinfeld impersonator. Truly the height of what would you call it? Like ethical production, a socialist dream. How you guys doing?
We're good. So are you I mean, how familiar are you with Seinfeld stuff? Because you're definitely way younger.
I've never actually seen the show, but I've seen so much like cultural downstream stuff, that I feel like I'm kind of familiar anyway.
So you understand the Festivus? Like, so you've heard of Festivus?
I've certainly heard of it, yeah. Though I don't. Is it Christmas? Is it a Christmas thing? I don't actually know.
Okay, so Festivus it's from Seinfeld. It's a reference to Seinfeld. And basically, Jerry Stiller was the actor, the comedian, and he played Costanza's father. And he's like this wackadoo. And he, when George was little, created this holiday because he just had to find a better way. And he created a Festivus for the rest of us. And it was like all these ridiculous things. You had the airing of grievances, the feats of strength. And you see, we have our aluminum pole. And it was the most ridiculous thing ever. And so that's what Festivus is. It's from Seinfeld. It's a Seinfeld reference.
I like that feats of strength bit. I like that a lot. The idea of a bunch of strong men like huddled around a fire tossing rocks.
Well, it could be that, but how it was done on Seinfeld is you have to take down the host, basically. You take turns until you pin the host.
Until you pin me, George. Festivus isn't over.
Like, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. So we've never actually had feats of strength on this show, but that would be really amusing. We'd need a much bigger studio.
You don't pay people to fly out there and physically fight you every holiday?
No. We don't have money to pay for guests. Are you kidding me? What do we do?
We're trying our best to become more relevant as best we can. Obviously, this is one of the panel discussion shows where a lot of people find us, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys aren't so bad."
You know,
yeah,
we're like the acquired taste.
Host the Festivus at a local sports bar and just sort of incorporate the feats of strength by starting bar fights, and you'll be fine. You'll be dandy. You'll find your content.
That could be our niche.
Well, I think if we were capable of hosting in like location, I mean that could be fun.
Yeah, it could be fun.
We could have to do a pretty good job. So, how do you look at 2022 as we end it?
If you had to air, really, the key thing of Festivus is the airing of grievances. So that's really what we've been doing. Is people come on and air their grievances. Last year, some people even actually had written lists. So it's kind of, what would you say would be your some of your grievances, and it doesn't have to be just this year. I mean, we sort of do it as an end of the year thing, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, there's certain topics that you may want to cover. So
yeah, please air grievances.
That's rough for me because I get along so well with everyone. I can't even think of anything. I mean, I don't know the concept.
I have a grievance with you.
Hit it.
I'll get to it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You have a grievance with
well, I do actually. I do. You just had to platform Jackson Ingle. You just had to do it.
Oh God.
This is going to be his grievance with you.
I swear to God, man, he is like, and I know. I guess my question for you is, there's a lot of like imitators on stream services and all different things that people will do in order to garner clout, support, things like that. He's particularly egregious because he's just such a dickhead. But I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, what is the motivation? Like what is he claims that he's like, oh yeah, I'm totally for, I'm a populist, I'm this, I'm MAGA this, I'm communist. I'm just like, no, you're just trying to make money. That's what you're doing. And he parlayed having a debate with you, which obviously, you buried him, but he wants to claim that he was somehow victorious and like, oh, Vosh just didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do that. And why do so many people gravitate to that crap, I guess is the question.
Oh God, that's a really complicated. No, I kind of share this grievance. I think, the big issue is, so he used to be like a big Hillary Clinton kind of guy.
Yes.
And people say like, oh, he's changed so much. I don't think he actually has. I think that he's always just believed in one thing, which is just kind of like pure power, just like the grift in its most absolute form. Like nothing else actually matters. Any belief he has to have that facilitates that is the right one to him. And as a product of that, like it seems shiftless from our side of things, but he's kind of like perfect for that because he's very sort of naturally spineless. I think a lot of people, especially young people and very insecure people whose lives aren't going very well, they don't, when they go online, whether you're talking about gaming or politics or whatever else, they're not really looking for like entertainment so much as they are looking for like a social avenue to validate their lives. And I think that people like Jackson are really good at providing that because he basically like shiftlessly dips in between 17 different iterations of, you know, actually this is the correct politics and I'm the apex of masculinity. And if you disagree with that, it means that you're in the outside group and you're without worth and blah, blah, blah. I think it's just a way of like grappling 15-year-olds with their parents' money.
But you just wanted to chat with him, right? Like you were just like, you'll talk to whoever.
Well, he wanted to talk about the conspiracy theory that Assad never used chemical weapons against his own people. I did a bunch of research on like, oh yeah, you know, the claims made by this one guy were totally like inaccurate. And I did a bunch of research on that. I was literally researching like the specific blast damage on a building to see if it corresponded to the claims that it could have been a like Moab that was dropped or whatever, like a big helicopter bomb rather than gas. I did all this research, and then I actually talked with him, and none of it mattered because he basically just like sat there and went, well, what if the official story isn't true for 2.5 hours? So it's pretty fun.
I obviously have, you know, my doubts and I don't know what to trust. I think in terms of, you know, there's like so little that we really know in terms of our government as far as what goes on domestically. Foreign policy wise, we know significantly less than that. When I look at what's going on right now, you know, regarding Ukraine, it's one of those situations where if you're going to be anti-war, then this isn't a case of saying, all right, I disagree with the way that the US is involved with Ukraine, but that doesn't mean that you go and side with Putin. It's like, if the goal is to ultimately end this war, which is my goal, which I think is most people's goal, however quickly it can be done, then saying that, oh, well, I totally agree with, you know, the side of, you know, Russia and, you know, everything about, you know, Ukraine is they're all controlled by Nazis. It's this need for not to be contrarian. There's like a technical word for it. It's like you're a
contrarian.
Well, yeah, or an opportunist. You know, you're looking to be well, even a contrarian, I guess, could be, you know, one way of looking at it is to just say, well, whatever is the overall consensus, I'm going to do the opposite.
Yes, that is a contrarian.
So that I think is, and there's a real market for that because we are such a divided country right now. And a big part of the discussion that we've been having this evening relates to, you know, the railroad workers and what happened to them. And the fact that labor is really the unifying issue of our time.
We have a question.
We do have a question. We could go to that. Satanic Cabal wants to know, Vash, speaking of ethical production, is it possible to have ethical consumption under capitalism? Is it even possible? If not, should we even try?
I think you should try, right? I mean, I think it's good to try, but ultimately, like, the systems are always going to grind out unethical behavior. So there's not really anything that any individual behavior can do about that. Even if you live some kind of like hypothetically perfect, like you're vegan and you take a bike everywhere and so on, you will always find ways to contribute to bad systems. As long as you can acknowledge that and try to do as best as you can in spite of it, I think that's fine, right? I mean, we all try the best we can. Nobody can be perfect.
No. And, you know, the things that they try to convince us are our own personal responsibility is really in their avoidance of handling things at the macro level. And I'm not saying that individuals don't have a responsibility. Like, I don't use plastic straws. If they come, I don't open them. I don't use them because I don't like the idea of a straw that I use stuck in some, you know, turtle's nostril somewhere out in the ocean. And so I just don't use it. But that's not going to solve the climate crisis, you know, and I think that they put so much individual responsibility. It's really a good way of shifting the real burden. This is a major problem. So like whether or not I boycott a particular business like a Walmart or an Amazon, that's not where the problem has to be addressed much higher up than that. Like we're way past that working at this point. That's
you have to keep your eyes on the prize. Like the most fucked up thing you can do, I think, is try to leverage your good habits as a way of avoiding systemic critique, you know? So because you use the paper straws, or because you bike to work or whatever, you get this feeling of like, oh, well, I'm not part of the problem. But in reality, like it was never that you as an individual were part of the problem. The problem was like this really big systemic thing. And you're kind of individualizing it in a way that really benefits the people who are actually themselves the problem, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's what and that's like courtesy of propaganda from the fossil fuel industry and all of and whatever plastic production companies and all of that stuff. Like, you're only going to get so much information. Yeah, well, I don't shop at Walmart just because I don't like it. And I do think it's a crappy company, but me boycotting it is not going to solve the problem. Right. Like, there's a lot of people I know that don't go to Walmart for that, but that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, boycotts are generally not that effective way of solving systemic problems. You can do they can work pretty well in like a localized sense, you know, like the black bus rider boycotts in the South during the
Yeah.
civil rights. Those are because that's very targeted, that's very local. But like it's like boycotting Amazon. Like, okay, yeah,
Right.
we're not reversing this trend with individual action. That shit's gonna take policy.
Right. Right. And the problem is that all the people, when you have people like the head of Amazon owns the Washington Post.
Washington Post, yeah.
Right. It's like you could see how people might feel defeatist about ever really being able to do anything when the fourth estate is owned by the same people it's supposed to be like protecting us.
It's like seeing a headline from the WAPO the other day, basically saying that war with Iran is inevitable. I'm just like, God in heaven. When they say democracy dies,
well, it is.
Really
All wars are inevitable when you're controlled by a military-industrial complex.
Yeah, and I mean, the way we see it, you know, if you're able to unite labor in some facet, and what we've discovered is when it comes to living wage, universal health care, civil liberties, even things like criminal justice reform and ending the wars, and then maybe even the biggest one of all, you know, building out a clean energy grid. You know, as you've often said, it's really about the language. You know,
Yeah.
Clean energy grid sounds better, more appealing to most people than a Green New Deal.
People are turned off to the concept of Green New Deal
Marketing,
because of the
branding.
whole, marketing matters, branding matters.
But if we're able to unite across the labor board, which seems to be very effective these days, I think that that's really something that doesn't get talked about enough. But I think we could probably get a lot of people on board, especially those that get marred down in the wedge issue dilemmas and all of that stuff. If you can unite around labor, I think that that's the ticket for the future. And especially right now, the way things are going, it just seems to be getting worse and worse every day. Most people can't, you know, afford to live. So how do you fix it? Well, you know, history of labor has always been, you know, how you get it done.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm hoping that public sentiment runs more in favor of labor following the rail strikes. You know, I haven't actually seen much like authentic, honest, you know, homegrown anti-union sentiment. It seems every time I see something about the labor strike that, you know, Biden has blocked with the railroads, it seems like when people, like, not just, you know, the financial sector or whatever, when they talk about it, I feel like I see a lot of sympathy, despite the fact that a rail strike could legitimately contribute to a lot of negative economic trends right now. And that gives me some hope. The idea that, you know, even in times of some hardship, people are willing to think positively of organized labor. Hopefully that, you know, we'll get something from that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that is the common denominator, because we're not going to, I mean, that's what is going to bring people to even discuss what we have always considered progressive issues. If we would stop calling them progressive issues and just call them like working class issues, because this is a class war. You know, that's what we're seeing. And a lot of the other stuff is definitely like tactics to keep us all divided. And it's very, very effective. And that's one of the things we're talking about. Like, the whole just two-party system is completely created as like this facade for the ruling class. And we're just all sort of just milling around fighting amongst each other. And it's very, very frustrating. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I don't do debates. I don't want to do debates. I believe what I believe. If new information comes to light, I'm very happy to listen to it and take it in. But I think debates are gratuitous, and they're generally done just for people to like stick it to each other.
Oh, they're terrible. You're doing the right thing.
Okay. So, but you apparently are very good at this. Like, this is something that you do. So I just wanted you to talk about, like, this past year, like, reflect on, have there been any really good debates that you've had that were worthwhile, or are they just like at this point somewhat ridiculous and you do it because it's like you just do it?
Oh, they've always been ridiculous, and I do it because it's a good way of like spreading my message, my ideology. People find it entertaining, and they're more likely to listen to messages they find entertaining. In terms of like a debate that like prompted interesting discussion or like enriched people intellectually, no, no, it's a terrible format for that. It's very, very bad for that. But one of my arguments has always been that as sort of tasteless as it may seem, it can be really beneficial to get good at participating in like the grungier, more bad faith kinds of political engagement, because the right has that down. Like a lot of people get radicalized over to the far right because they're like boomers who listen to talk radio where some guy with a wattle neck is screeching about how gay people are ruining America. And like there's nothing of value to this intellectually. They do it anyway, and it works, and it brings a lot of people over. I think the most we can strive to be is honest. As long as we're honest, and I certainly try to be, I think you can get your hands dirty with as much stupid, bad faith fucking debate bullshit as you want, because you're trying your best to make the world a better place when you engage with people like that.
Right. Well, your message is whatever your message is, right? You're not like, and what's interesting is somebody who I wasn't in debate in high school because I was like more newspaper oriented, but as somebody who went to law school and had to do like moot court and mock trial and all this stuff, like I'm very familiar what is a legitimate debate. Like I know what a legitimate debate is, and I love to watch a real debate. I have a picture of Christopher Hitchens hanging up on my wall. Like I am about a good debate. It's all good. But what people in politics say is a debate. No, it's not. It's arguing moot points. I don't want to argue. I'm not going to argue universal health care any more than I'm going to argue with a flat earther. Like, I'm just not going to, like, what is to be gained from that? And I just don't have the patience for it. And some of the people you deal with, there are some levels of stupid that I've seen that you talk to, even just audio, that I just don't even know how you keep a straight face.
Well, that's the kid. Well, I often don't. I mean, oftentimes these debates are just about finding ways to make fun of them in funny ways. Well, it comes down to that, right? I mean, especially like you say, universal healthcare, right? Like there are some interesting conversations you can have about universal healthcare based on like a pragmatic
Yes.
Like, okay, well,
Yes.
how would that system work? How would you pay for it? Okay, those questions aren't necessarily bad faith. You can have a good convo, and it gets complicated. And there are real trade-offs, The government, much as it can do a lot more than it is right now, doesn't have limitless money and power. What might we lose through universal healthcare? Something, sometimes, maybe. But
no, we could debate the different systems that would work.
Yeah.
I won't debate whether or not we're entitled to have it.
No, exactly.
Like,
And that's the other
my
kind.
point, right?
It's that ethical foundation. And then
Yeah.
you'll have people who will discuss the granular bits, and that's good. But then you'll have people who just be like, actually, I think the poor should just have to suffer, because otherwise they'll like,
Right.
I don't know, they'll like get lazy. I don't know. And it's like, okay, well, what the fuck? What, like, how am I engaging with this? Come on, fuck you. Like, and then
Well,
you just
that's
make
to
fun of
pull
them.
yourself up from your bootstraps, people.
Listen.
I'm not talking with those people because we're not living in the same universe.
Listen, that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you ever decide that you want to debate me, Vosh, I will definitely debate you, and you are definitely
He's trying to
going
be
lose.
Ben Shapiro.
You definitely
Oh,
will
I
lose.
recognize. That's a good impression.
Oh, you're definitely going to lose, and I am totally a masculine male. I am totally all about pleasing my wife and being a champion of the populist right.
You didn't know what wet pussy was. You're not about pleasing your wife.
He's
Listen,
a-
you're
he's
speaking
a
very
man now.
inappropriately, and I.
I'll speak
Do
inappropriately.
you understand that it is listen? It is Shabbos right now, and you are speaking very inappropriately. You should.
It is Shabbos. Why are you here?
You are dressed very inappropriately, and you shouldn't be talking like that. But believe me, Vosh, I will meet you on that debate stage, and I will crush you.
He might crush me with his arms too. He's been.
I
working
think
out.
he
He's
wears
been-
lifts. I
he's
think
been
he wears
beefy.
lifts in his shoes.
I think he'd be a worthy opponent. If there's ever a guy I want to do, what do they call it, chess boxing with? It would be Ben Shapiro. That would be good content. That would be incredible content.
But do you ever feel look, you are actually a really smart philosophical type person.
Oh.
Like you actually could be engaged in real debates that are interesting, right? Like you know what I mean? Like that are actually good. And instead you're sort of, sometimes it's like a cat with a mouse just sort of toying with it for fun.
I think that as a leftist, and as a progressive, being correct is a very easy side of the conflict. It's the easiest. It's kind of a gimme, to be honest. The difficult thing is being correct and getting people to listen to you. And the more I've done what I do, the more I've realized that's the actual battleground there. I've heard correct arguments towards every position I believe in being delivered my entire life fruitlessly? How many correct arguments have been made to the effect of climate change being a real threat to humans, right? I mean, we've been hearing this stuff since, at least I have, since I was a little kid, and things remain as they are. The real kicker is, how effectively can keep people that, actually change their behavior on account of it. And that to me is the real skill ceiling. That's what I try to focus on. And that's what I'm, always trying to learn more at, because it's actually very difficult to get people to listen to you.
So what's your mission? What are you trying to do?
Well, right now, I'm just mostly concerned with the imminent fascist takeover of the United States.
It's valid concern. It's a valid concern.
The Republican Party is very committed to anti-democracy at the moment, like with a consistency and a shamelessness that we just really haven't ever seen before. And the Democrats are just chilling.
Well, they're Mick resistance. That's Mick resistance. That's
yeah. Like, we get the Jan 6 committee's recommendation to prosecute Donald Trump. The issue here isn't Donald Trump. Donald Trump's just the guy who's there at the moment. Like, the entire party apparatus for the GOP is fully committed to this. If it's not Trump, it'll be DeSantis or anyone else. But we're just kind of sleepwalking into this. It's very disappointing.
Well, we definitely think it is DeSantis at this point. Although Margaret Kimberly, who was on the panel before, does think that Josh Hawley is going to run for president, and I could see that. I don't know if that's going to happen in 24, but it just stands to reason that we're kind of living through this whole neoliberalism nightmare all over again.
Well, we're in this post-neoliberalism uprising, and people are going to the right because there is no left.
No, I completely agree. And frankly, not only is there no left, there's not even like a liberal left. If you want a message on what the Republicans care about right now, they have an army. They have a massive, incredibly dedicated, well-funded, committed media team that will give you an extremely extensive understanding of what they're about right now. What do the Democrats have? Here's a quick question, by the way. Who are the Democrats throwing up there for 2024? We have guesses, but normally a political party, especially, a front-running political party whose current guy is 800 years old, you'd think they would have very clear, strong early messaging on who they think strong contenders are. What do we have? Nobody knows what's going on. And as a product of that, Democrats don't have anywhere to turn when it comes to cohesive messaging. Republicans can look to literally any of their political leaders or pundits to get that kind of cohesion. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but how much of that do you think is really just motivated by the paycheck? I mean, you look at they just did their Turning Point USA event I think it was in Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, you have, all of these individuals. The person I dislike the most is probably Steven Crowder. But, you get a lot of these individuals that figure out a way to cultivate a lot of support. But I think a lot of that stems from one thing that the right, whether it is Steven Crowder, whether it is Ben Shapiro, and then you have the flex right, if you want to call it, the Tim Pools of the world, they identify themselves as anti-establishment. And we're living in a world today where identification with, let's say, the Democratic Party, and at least the faces of the Democratic Party, is that of the DC bureaucratic establishment that people simply can't stand. And so that opens up an opportunity for those types of individuals who, Dave Rubin probably being the best example of saying, oh yeah, I'm totally an outsider. I'm totally, not for the DC establishment. Hey, by the way, buy my book, do this, do that. That's going to make me a lot of money. I think they've really cultivated that desire for the anti-establishment movement that is happening in this country. Do you see it the same way?
Oh, no, completely. Yeah, the Democrats are violently reject. So to my mind, both Republicans and Democrats are ultimately subservient to capital in different ways and to different extents. I think the Republicans are way worse in this respect, but ultimately, it's the same master. And with Republicans, all this culture war fascism bullshit is basically just an extension of the same play run they've been doing since Reagan, which is we're going to wholeheartedly commit to culture war talking points as a way of distracting the average voter from the fact that we are fucking them sideways with our economic policy. We're going to pass nonstop wealthy tax cuts, and you're just going to sit there and take it because also we're the ones who are keeping abortion from happening or this or that or whatever. And they fully commit to that.
Well, we're protecting you from the gays. No, we're protecting you from the trans people in the bathroom. And so somebody has to protect you from them, because those Democrats are teaching them how to just change genders in kindergarten.
From the violent video games, from the satanic panic, hair metal bands, like always and always and always and always it goes on. And it's, and like through all that, you know, they're able to find I like populist ways of pushing their messaging that don't conflict with that appraisal of capital. But Democrats don't have that, because what happens if you go for populist left? The populist left is anti-capital. They'll actually challenge corporations. You know, you go Bernie Sanders, and you actually see a threat to the power systems in this country. Donald Trump doesn't represent that. So for that reason, I think the Dems are terrified of their own populist wing, which means they can't really compete with Republicans on the same playing field. Nobody likes institutionalists right now. It's completely out of fashion.
No, I mean, well, but the Democrats proved that they preferred Donald Trump to Bernie Sanders. I mean, they proved that. Like, that to me is clear. They're all on the same team. You know, the Democrats just tend to be a little bit better on social issues. So they're at least, they're kinder and gentler when they stab you. But they all dollars lead to the same people.
Still getting stabbed.
Oh, you're still getting stabbed.
That doesn't change.
They're just kinder and gentler about it. And I think people are desperate, and the Democrats don't offer anything. They stand for nothing. And when you ask who they're going to put up, as of right now, they're saying Joe. They're saying Joe's running for a second term. So
and part of the reason why I believe the GOP is going to win in 24 is that you're really stuck in this very dangerous position of, well, we want Joe again simply because he's the incumbent president, but he's incapable of campaigning. So let's just start with that. If you don't actually have a primary, which putting South Carolina first is deliberately done to make sure that there isn't one, or at least one that isn't competitive. And so by doing that, you completely eliminate any type of enthusiasm
for a primary,
or just an enthusiasm for a candidate going into 24. And you know that whatever the GOP is going to do, no matter how bloody their primary is going to be, because eventually other people are going to get in there to join Trump, whether it is Pence, whether it is Nikki Haley, whether it is Ron DeSantis, whether it is Josh Hawley.
Kanye West, he's going for it.
In the GIMP outfit or not. I mean, the bottom line is, that primary is going to be rough, but ultimately they will unite to beat either Joe Biden or whomever. To me, speaks of greater volumes to, we desperately need to get something going here. I mean, our thought was possibly having some type of a labor organizer leader run against Joe.
It's just not enough time. And the bottom line is they're going to put up Joe because that's what they've got.
No, I completely agree. It's ridiculous. There doesn't seem to be any like institutional like drive to win from the Democrats. You know, the GOP is burning themselves through. Like they're risking a lot of internal conflict by promoting DeSantis over Trump. They're willing to put effort into what they think will suit their party most effectively in the future. Dems are just you know, they're just sitting there, just a big easy fat target.
Well, don't you think it's sort of like that's their role? They're the Mick resistance. That's the point. Like they're not really. This is all like WWE wrestling kind of thing. Like they're all kind of friends at the end. People like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, they'll like hang out. Like this isn't it. They just play the bad guy on TV.
Yeah, I used to think that it was malicious on their part, that they were the planned opposition. But the more this happens, I actually don't think that's true. I actually think that it's, in a way, it's more sinister. It's an ideological thing. I think that liberalism and its precepts kind of leads them to believe that this civility high road bullshit. I think they mean it when they say it, you know? When Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi like get along or whatever, I legitimately think that in Nancy Pelosi's head, she's doing this like, well, by indicating that I'm willing to sit down with the opposition, right, I'm actually one of the people saving American democracy. No matter how many times the Republicans like stab Democrats in the back or lie or turn their back on mutually necessary legislation, I genuinely think they believe that. I think it's like a liberal mind parasite. There's like a brain worm keeping them from understanding what's happening.
Yeah, it's also, that reminds me, we've done a few shows like this past year where we really focused on like the toxicity of neoliberalism. We had, I'm drawing, Lily Geismer was on about her book Left Behind, really talking about how the party, like the neoliberal direction, is just, that's what's killing everything. But that's what's ultimately pushing people to go behind a fascist right wing. It's the result. It's the result droppings of what was left after we had people like, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Like they've created this.
And it becomes so much easier for those individuals that we were talking about in order for them to cultivate some type of a support network, because you still see a lot of people who just think, well, capitalism actually works. It's just not working the right way. And if we just do this, that, and the other thing, no, the system is broken. Our economic and political system in this country is broken, and it needs to be fixed. It isn't going to be fixed by doing what we've done, thinking that you're just going to save it by putting Band-Aids on a gaping wound. Something as simple, Vash, which I think is one of the most important grievances that we can have. Obviously, we have our grievances on the outside for labor, especially the railroad workers. But the grievance on the Hill that I think is just unbelievable at this point is the fact that they can't even get a vote on whether or not to ban insider trading amongst congressional representatives.
We're actually discussing that. Like, that's the fact that the people doing it vote on it. It's laughable. It's
come on. Nancy Pelosi has to make money somehow. Come on.
So we found out, by the way, do you remember the whole thing during COVID where she's like showing off the ice cream in her freezer? You remember that whole thing, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. So it turns out she doesn't even pay for the ice cream. The company sends it to her for free anyway.
Yeah.
I just found that out last night, which is just so random. I just happened to find that out. But
one day that'll be me. Only hope. I strive. That's the American dream, is seeing corruption and going like, oh yeah, dude.
But don't you think that at some point the corruption becomes just so brazen in everybody's face that they're just not going to take it anymore?
Well, here's the thing. In terms of open corruption, nobody beats Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the most flagrant, like wouldn't divest from his businesses, immediately got his family members in there, like the Jared Kushner $2 billion with the Saudis thing. Like did preferential business with countries that he had like estate holdings in with like his territory. He like incredibly corrupt. But the difference is like, just in terms of pure optics, Donald Trump is able to sell anti-establishmentarianism like as a concept. He's able to make it seem like it's a thing he's doing. He's not. That's not true. He's lying, as he often does. But the Democrats don't have an interest even in an aesthetic adoption of that. The Democrat messaging is everything is fine, stay the course. We just need to try a little bit harder at what we're doing right now, and it'll all be okay. I think
we just need one more Democrat in there. We just got to get one more Democrat in there.
A little bit further, And I do think, like, I do believe that the Republicans' fear-mongering is bullshit, because the stuff they say they want to change is like, oh yeah, dude, America is dying because of trans people or whatever. But the messaging they take, like the tone of things are fucked and we need to have like we need substantial change. Fear is warranted from the position of the average American right now. That's not a lie when it's being done on our side.
No, it's true. But it's not the trans people.
Excuse me. I would no listen. You totally brought me up, and now we have to talk. I'm not calling you Bush. I'm calling you Douche. That's your new name, and you're going to stick with it as long as I'm around. You are totally fake news. I totally did exactly what everybody else does.
Just to give everybody a fucking nickname.
No, it's totally legal. Believe me, Douche.
The sanctimonious.
We're totally
Ron DeSanctimonious.
Ron DeSanctimonious totally got in the way, but believe me, this is a festival, Festivus, whatever you call it. We are making America great again.
Again.
In 24. And if you get in the way, Douche, we're going to have a real problem. I am a totally honest, transparent, greatest person on the planet.
You guys have both been banned from different platforms. You guys have some stuff in common.
No, we totally don't have anything in
common.
Yeah,
exactly. We could work together.
No, if you want to make America great again, we can work together. That's wonderful.
We both hate women. We don't trust women. We can work together.
Women. I totally trust women.
Vosh, are you misogynist? Vosh, are you misogynist? Is that what you're saying?
I will be for Donald Trump.
Oh,
Okay.
that's really great. Well, women are second-class citizens. They understand that. So anyway, we're having this really great conversation about what is honest government. I am an honest person, a tremendous person,
Ugh.
and people telling me that I'm a liar. All the things that I do are for the benefit of the American people. You need to get me back in that White House.
Nobody's putting you back in the White House.
No, you totally have to get me back in the White
I
House.
understand this a bit, but I also want to point out that sincerely, that rhetoric right there is what the Democrats are missing. There is no urgency. Like listening to Biden speak is like listening to like a lecturer at like an aquarium explain the mating cycles of clownfish. There's no, it's incredibly boring. And what, no matter what, like. As a streamer, as a leftist, I won't tune in for a Biden speech because that shit's boring. I will for a Trump speech because that shit isn't boring.
That is because I totally understand the American people. Sleepy Joe, he's way past bedtime. He needs to go to sleep. He is really out of his element. I still don't understand how I lost that last election. It makes no sense.
It was only because of COVID and he barely won.
Well, that's very true. And if only I had cared more about the American people.
If only you cared about anybody but yourself.
Well, listen, in this world, it's either kill or be killed. And I'm not being killed. I'm living forever.
So gross.
So get out there, get yours while you can. And if you support me, we're going to make America great again. In 24.
Go, you're so gross. This is actually worse than when you were Bill Clinton a few minutes ago.
Great to see you, douche. I hope to make it on your show sometime. You're really great.
I hope so too, I think that would kind of be a career highlight a little bit.
It would be interesting.
But I think from the perspective of why people gravitate to him, it has more to do with this idea that, okay, well, at least I know he's being transparent about the fact that he's corrupt, whereas everyone else wants to pretend like we're not corrupt. It's just Trump. He's the only bad guy. It's like he just does it brazenly in public.
But so does Nancy Pelosi. Well, so does our Congresswoman. They're doing insider trading, like all of it. It's just so gross.
And I think as much as people hate Trump, there's more people that hate the bureaucratic establishment that is American politics even more than they hate Trump.
Yeah.
And that's
I think that it's like the whole any individual senator might have an approval rating of like 50%, but the Senate as a whole has an approval rating of 11%. I think everybody has an understanding of some kind of like nebulous government corruption that they disapprove of. The problem is that everyone points it like it's in the other direction. Oh yeah, the nebulous government corruption, they're doing it. There's not really much consistency. Insider trading, the average American doesn't know what insider trading is. They have no clue.
Right.
They'll believe what they're taught. They'll believe if they trust the pundit, if they think the TV anchor is handsome. In terms of like a cohesive understanding of what can be done to fix this, or like who's actually at fault, I don't think any of them know. And for that you need to focus on like simple messaging. And what the Republicans have done is they've completely consolidated their message behind being fucking dishonest and fascists. But that is a message. Whereas for the Democrats, it's like there is nothing they can say about Republicans while being honest that does not either in some way impugn them or it suggests some kind of revolutionary or radical sentiment. Because if you start attacking Republicans for being fascist insurrectionaries and then like start going after them with like sedition arrests or whatever, which would be based in red pilled, they would be doing that in a fashion which kind of implicates their collaboration with Republicans for the past like half century. There's the system as it is right now just does not permit Democrats to do anything without like kind of betraying their greater interests. So, here we are, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I see why some people feel somewhat defeatist, because you look at it and we're living in this like, well, I mean, it's like you have this facade of a democracy where you're offered, and this is how I was trying to explain to someone. It's like, okay, yes, you get a choice of the menu. Off the menu, but someone else is providing you with the menu. So like the menu that's being provided to you, you have no choice over that. You just get a choice on that menu. So it's not real anyway. So I can understand why some people get defeatist, especially people on the extreme rights and lefts.
And I also think that there's something to be said for the fact that it doesn't really seem like any of the so-called, whether it's the squad or even Bernie, especially in light of what happened with the railroad workers, there was no real fight there.
I feel like that, yeah.
There wasn't even a fight regarding, Hakeem Jeffries becoming the minority speaker, whereas on the GOP side, I mean, Kevin McCarthy has like a legitimate challenge to his speakership. And so why do you think that is? Why do you think that fight is so much greater on their side?
Why are they more Democratic? The Republicans are more Democratic in their electoral process.
They have one rule.
Internally, they actually are. That is absolutely true. They're actually willing to shake things up because they're terrified of their base. Democrats hate their base. They don't give a fuck about them. Republicans also hate their base, but they're terrified of them. It's a very different kind of disdain. There was that report on like the Tea Party or whatever. Republicans will literally like catapult their party in whatever direction they think will appeal to like racist old white people. Whatever kind of old white racism is going on right now, whatever is in vogue, they would like panic, flop sweating. They'll be like, okay, wait, what do we got to do? What do we got to do? Running around like whatever they can do to appeal to them. There was that bombshell report that was done on Facebook like 8 months ago where it was like the way that they conduct moderation for Facebook was a bunch of European far right parties actually moved farther right because their constituencies on Facebook had gotten so radical because of the way content was recommended to them that the parties themselves were being moved to the right to keep up with the belief systems of the people who were voting for them, which is insane.
Right. So it's a vicious cycle of pushing further and further to the right. And unfortunately, we don't have something like that on the left. See, if we had something like that on the left, and it's interesting because what Carrie's saying is their base has militias, and yeah, that's true, and they are afraid of their base. But what we need to have is where labor is our base, and they should be afraid of that.
And they should
and
be
that's what this is supposed to be.
And they could be militant, even if they're not walking around with AK-47.
Well, look, I am not a violent person. I don't condone violence, but I understand it. And I think it's really ignorant to think that we're going to really get anywhere without some level of violence. And when people are like Nancy Pelosi is wondering, why would someone break into my house? Oh, gee, I don't know, Marie Antoinette. Why would somebody break into your house? I think we're going to start seeing it more and more.
Well, that's
again, I'm not doing it.
That guy didn't break into her house because he has a problem with insider trading. That guy broke into her house because he's a lunatic who was groomed by far right propaganda, and that's the issue. Regardless of the ethics of it, it is actually really effective to just heighten the schizophrenic tendencies of your voter base by facilitating a nonstop 24/7 media news cycle about like QAnon adjacent propagandizing, and then just like let the craziest people do what they will. That's so much easier than radicalizing people based on something real, like insider trading or like ineffective resistance against fascist collusion. Those things, like real shit, does not always beget more real reactions. In fact, oftentimes it's the opposite. The fake problems get the most attention. The satanic panic with the fucking hair metal albums played in reverse revealing satanic messages, that makes its way up to Congress. Meanwhile, like 1,000 real strikes are squashed and unions busted.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head, especially coming from LA. I mean, I remember when the Kardashians, when that show came out, and I'm just thinking, this is so unbelievably bad for American culture, and yet millions and millions of people are obsessed with that type of stuff. Like, that is what is considered of value today, and there is no value to it. In fact, it devalues our culture. And when it comes to real everyday issues, it's almost like if we're not doing a podcast, we're not going to name any names, Vosh. You probably know some of them, but there are podcasts who literally built their audience just by shit talking other podcasts.
He knows this.
That's what they did.
I've heard rumors of these people.
Yeah. Well,
they're out there. Well, but no, we started this because I actually wanted to do long form interviews with people that are experts and books and authors and educate people. That was sort of my point. Like that was
well, it's just a sensationalism thing, right? You see it all around the place. Oh wait, I'm sorry, hold on, my lights are being fucked with.
Oh, it looks like the club now. So
yeah, it looks like an ooh.
There we go. Brought it back.
Very fancy.
Yeah, me and my roommate both have the exact same remote controlled light setup. So sometimes if one of us hits the lights, the other person will get hit by it. But anyway, it's like it's so difficult, I think, to get like the energy of the kinds of people who are radicalized by QAnon combined with the the truth and the honest reporting and the I guess like responsible engagement that you would get from the kind of production that you would ever want to be involved in. It's really difficult to blend those two, and I don't know if anyone does it successfully. Genuinely, it's really tough to do that.
Well, I also think if like I just finished watching Dope Sick for the first time. We had Beth Macy on the podcast. So, of course, I felt inclined to at least catch up to what's been going on. And, of course, I was familiar with the Sacklers and, what they had done. And obviously the opioid crisis is completely fueled by the fact that Big Pharma owns our government. No one lobbies Capitol Hill harder than private insurance and Big Pharma. And so for anybody who has either been touched by the opioid crisis, most people have, for anybody who is tired of the corruption within the health insurance industry that runs our country, a universal healthcare single-payer system is the way out of this. And so when people are looking at it like, well, I don't want the government doing it, the government is funding it. They're not running it. We do not need for-profit middlemen in between us and our doctors. It's almost like you've got to hit people over the head with that 1,000 times over before it finally starts to stick.
I don't want the government running the system. You know who I do trust? Private insurance companies.
Yes! Right, exactly. It's been so much better. It's working out so well for us.
We're doing great. Everyone is doing great.
You've spoken about this before a few times, and it's been a while, I think, and you've talked about just healthcare in general and your own, experience in dealing with that. And it's ridiculous here.
Oh no, it's insane. I mean, the funny thing is, it's actually so bad now that being wealthy doesn't. My YouTube career is doing just fine. There are so few doctors up here in the Pacific Northwest that sometimes, even if you have a lot of money, it can take forever to get an appointment. The system is so strained right now that it is, and there are incentives that push doctors out. There's a doctor shortage. There's a nurse shortage. There are so many individual points of failure, and that's because at every level there's 5 million middlemen to every one doctor, to every person whose job it is to save a life. There are 50 people around them who make money adjacent to them, and they have their own entirely separate sets of incentives that very, very, very rarely coincide with ours. It's insane. You were talking earlier about the oh god, what was it? It wasn't the insurance. It was the fentanyl, right? This is another one of those rhetorical things. The fentanyl crisis in America right now is primarily a product of irresponsible prescription from pharmaceutical companies. They will lobby at medical conventions and they will push doctors to recommend their product because getting people on incredibly addictive pain meds is a really easy way of getting them out the door quickly. And then these people all develop addictions, and it's oh, whoops, oh, that's crazy. But the Republicans are the only ones talking about this, and they blame China because fentanyl comes in from China. You're ever going to close the fucking border with China? Good luck with that one. When in reality, all it would take is anti-pharmaceutical regulations done here at home to change things. But we're not going to do it because nobody wants to call them out.
Well, they're on the payroll. They're all on the payroll.
And then you wonder, at this point of his career, why Bernie isn't using his. Remember, Bernie used to do his barnstorming speeches on the House and Senate floor when no one knew who he was. If he started doing those barnstorming speeches right now with millions and millions of people who listen to him on the regular, imagine how many people would be inspired by that. I just don't understand why that's not happening right now the way that it needs to.
I think. Sorry.
No, please.
Well, I think I'm of two minds on this one. I'm generally speaking, especially when it comes to other leftists, I never want to assume bad faith on their part because there's an entire cottage industry on that person's betrayed the real left. The real left will do this. And and then somebody else shows up and they're oh, well, this person betrayed the real left. And this happens forever and ever and ever. And leftists been killing each other over shit for ages. So it's an ongoing problem. I trust the hell out of Bernie. My guess is it's one of three things. Either my man's tired, which I mean, he is really old.
Yeah.
So, if you guys think I'm going to be an effective political messenger when I'm 800 or whatever, fuck no. I'm taking that money and I'm staying in my summer home. I'm surprised he bothers at all.
That's what I say.
That's one. And I think the other one is my guess might be that he's terrified of causing like rustling within the Democratic Party right now because he doesn't see a road forward for the left at this particular moment in time, but he does see a a point where any weakness in the Democrats is very useful to like the fascists. So he might be like very unwilling to, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if that's right on his part, but that is a concern I could see being valid depending on how you looked at it.
Well, I see us as we are sliding down the mountain, and now we're sliding down the mountain very quickly. And the quicker we fall down that mountain, the easier it's going to be for somebody who, whether he's a fascist or not, he is at least an authoritarian, no question. But Ron DeSantis will appeal to a lot of this country for a lot of reasons. He's got the picture-perfect family. He's got the picture-perfect pedigree from the fact that he was a star athlete. He's Ivy League educated. He served our country, was a soldier, and JAG.
Tortured a lot of people. We love that.
Tortured a lot. Hey, even better.
Yeah, we love that shit.
He agrees with that. And then you have this real or imagined, mostly imagined, he kept Florida free. And for a lot of this country, that's resonating right now. And if you don't have anything to fight back against that, you're in a lot of fucking trouble in the future. And it's going to be not only to the detriment of the nation, because I do believe that if it is Biden versus DeSantis, especially because DeSantis is 40 years younger than Biden is, I mean, he is going to run circles around him out there. His wife, Casey, is so easy on the eyes from the way that she speaks, the way she looks.
Thank God DeSantis is super uncharismatic. At least we have that going for him.
He's got his, it's almost the opposite because he has Casey. Everyone has always said that his political ascendancy has a lot to do with her, that she has played a significant role in that. And he's got the most adorable children.
But it's not like Joe is Mr. Charisma.
That's the problem.
Oh, no, for sure. I'm just, I find DeSantis very distasteful to listen to because I just feel like he's trying to like do a workshop Don bit. But he doesn't have any energy, so it just comes across kind of pathetic. But that's a me thing, you know. America's going to resonate with it. He's going to ride hard off the he kept Florida free bullshit. Even though he was literally sending like agents of the state to go shut down reporters who were talking about like Florida's death toll from COVID and everything. But it doesn't matter.
Here's the thing.
Reality doesn't matter.
The authorities, here's the thing. Honestly, if his slogan should be, I'm an authoritarian, but I get shit done.
That's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to say. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. But let me say this. So we just recently had that hurricane here, and he got that bridge put up to Sanibel really fast. And I have no doubt that if that were Charlie Crist sitting there, that bridge would not have gotten done as fast as it got done.
And one thing that people never emphasize enough when it comes to the WWE that is the political arena, the average voter gravitates towards leaders, authoritarian for the most part, who want to kick ass and take names. And they don't care if it's actually being done to the benefit of the worker. Because so many people, I truly believe this, Vosh. I believe that one of the reasons why a lot of people have, a lot of young people, especially a lot of young entrepreneurial, independent-minded people are gravitating towards the GOP. Their attitude has basically become, well, I can't fix the system. I can't change it. So I might as well go to the party that actually wants to help me succeed. I think that's in part and parcel the mindset that a lot of them take on.
The Peter Thiel line. This is like the modern Silicon Valley fascist bit, where it's like they're not ideologically fascist in the sense of like blood for land, glory to the fatherland, whatever. But more so, they see America like a failing startup, and what you do with a failing startup is you clear out management and you get a new go-getter up there on top. A lot of people think that authoritarianism means getting shit done. In reality, it often doesn't. The bureaucratic and managerial subsystems tend to fail in authoritarian regimes. A lot of things get gummed up, but they're very good at making a show of the couple of things that do end up getting pushed through really quickly. Because of course, transcending democracy means you can get stuff done faster. Of course, you're skipping deliberation, and they're really good at weaponizing that politically. And I completely agree. Democrats have fully abandoned this line. The idea of like we are go-getters who will get stuff done, gone. Democrats don't even bother. It's done. It's dead. That idea is just not something they care about selling people on, and that's what people want to hear right now. It's what I want to hear. You know, I want to believe, even if it's a fucking Democrat. You know, I want to believe that when I vote for somebody, they're going to be like an activist in office. They're going to sit there and they're going to take their time to, in every way possible, promote the values I voted them in for. And but Democrats, it's just, you know, hey, don't worry about it. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're going to keep doing it the way it's going because it's going fine. Wink. And that just doesn't sell with anyone anymore. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I do feel this.
No, it's the problem. There's no real choice.
Yeah, it is sad.
It's crap or crappier.
I know we've mentioned this before you've been on, but if you haven't had the opportunity to check out Whole Washington, they really are a great grassroots group. They're trying to get a ballot initiative in the state of Washington to basically have single-payer healthcare. Now, everyone says, well, you can't do it at the state level if you don't have the backing of the federal government in terms of the, being able to have the currency to have the funding for it properly. If for whatever reason there's a short, well, the goal, of course, is to make sure, and Tom Hartman, who's been on our podcast multiple times, has brought this up, is that the only way it could work at the state level is if there's like this clause that is on at the federal level which essentially like it prevents states from accessing federal funds for the purposes of things like healthcare. Shocking. If we are going to be able to do any type of legitimate pushes, I think focusing on policies, focusing on this coalition building, and especially something like a ballot initiative, that's what works here in Florida. The best things we get in Florida are ballot initiatives.
I was gonna fucking say, I'm so sorry. I was gonna say that earlier.
Yeah.
One of the biggest indictments against Democrats is the fact that if you put policies on the table, America is in favor of Democrat-aligned policies 2-1 almost every time. The fact that Kansas fucking shot down that state constitutional amendment to allow for abortion bans,
of course,
while voting in Republicans across the board is such a disgusting indictment of Democrats, because it means that when you strip Democrats away from Democrat policy, all of a sudden it's an uncontroversial win. Republicans win elections despite a minority of the country caring about their policies, and Democrats lose elections despite a majority of people in the country caring about their policies. It's insane. This should be a layup for them.
3 extremely red states, Kansas, Kentucky, and Montana, all voted to codify Roe because the people had an opportunity to vote for it. The only state that has made it ironclad law, and people are going to fight it, we'll see what happens, but Indiana obviously rejected a woman's right to choose. But why did that happen? Because the GOP state legislature decided on their own. They didn't give the people the opportunity to have a say-so. And so that's the problem. The overwhelming majority of the people in this country, when it comes to the issue at bar, know how to vote the right way. They may have their reasons for voting GOP or voting Democrat, but when it comes to those, it's like when people say, well, they say that 80 to 85% of the country believes in a universal healthcare system, but, when they learn this, that, no. Most people are not as dumb as you think they are. When they're given the opportunity to really understand a serious issue, like whether or not they want to have for-profit middlemen in between them and their doctor, people understand what that means, and they know they don't want that. When it comes to whether or not a woman has the right to choose what to do with her own body, overwhelmingly, people know exactly what to do.
Well, along the same line, we had Trump won Florida, but that same year we passed a $15 minimum wage by ballot initiative.
Yeah.
And yet we can't get our Democratic Party to be pushing for a living wage.
Reenfranchising felons, which the Republicans immediately were like, wait, and then undid with by putting it's it is pretty disappointing. I know that Republicans have been increasingly upset over the past half century because every passing decade, all of the degeneracy they fight against becomes more and more popular, and that's great and that's fun at all. But the fact that all you have to do to sell people on Democratic policy is not bring in the Democrats is such an indictment of them as a party. And it's like it is, if ever there was an ability to do a party-wide like vote of no confidence, they have fucking earned it. They find it's incredible. They find ways to make good things seem unappealing almost every time to a lot of Americans. Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've also meant to say, as long as I'm rambling, that a lot of this also comes down to media spread. Democrats don't have any way to get their messaging out if they even had a message they wanted to share, which is its own problem. But outside of that, like in terms of television, the Republicans, Tucker Carlson, whatever bullshit, most popular on TV. In terms of the internet, TikTok, owned by China, kind of a wash there, but they do ban gay people for being gay, so that's not great. Twitter, currently owned by a far-right lunatic, Elon Musk. Facebook and Instagram, owned by Zuckerberg. Also, Facebook, far-right hellhole, in terms of like publications, left-wing publications online have a paywall that you need a subscription. Right-wing publications don't. At every level, they're just better at getting their message out there.
How about the fact that YouTube is so damn suppressed and everyone has been saying, well, listen, Rumble tends to be definitely on the right, but at least you'll get your message out. Whether people will like it or not is a matter of circumstance. But, at least they're not trying to keep it, shut down. But I still think it all gets back to Greg. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This has been a great night. You guys have been fantastic.
Yes, our top three are going to get the pencils.
Going to get the pencils. That's
top three are getting our Festivus pencil sets.
Vosh, you've hit it on the head, and I think everyone just needs to understand that this is really all about labor. Anything that will fundamentally change the economic and political infrastructure of this country is when the two parties will unite to crush us. And that's what happens. And we have to recognize that all of this other, as you said, bullshit that people get distracted by, like which podcasters talking shit about who or God knows what.
Well, hold on. I love talking shit about podcasters. Let's not take away my favorite pastime, okay? Now you're coming for my rights, huh?
No, I'm not going to take away your right, because at least what you do isn't centered around talking shit about other people. You talk about things that really matter.
No, he plays video games.
I play video games and I shit talk people. And that's what I love to do. No, I fully, there is like a strong non-productive tendency. Oh, speaking of, wait, do I want to shit talk a podcast right now? Okay. There's another podcast very popular on the left that I'm not going to name. Okay. They rhyme with Schmappo Schmophouse. And look, I'm not going to doubt the lefty creds in these people, because that'd be pretty dumb. They are leftists. However, after Bernie kicked it in the primaries, I feel like there was like a real loss of hope on their part that led to a diminishing of the value of some of their takes. I've said this a billion times before. I'm not airing this new here. In fact, you two completely disagree. You have no qualms whatsoever with Chapo Trap House. You've told me so before. Just me. But I will say, like, the more things get fucked in this country, the more necessary it is that we find excuses to focus on literally anything other than infighting. It's one of the reasons why over the past year or so, I have been like, I've been biting my tongue, like I've been really trying to not argue with other people on the left. And I think I've done like kind of well in that regard. It's something that I've had to put effort into, because as a leftist, the first people you go after are other leftists, but it's really worth the effort. And I don't know. Hopefully it amounts to something, because we really need that solidarity right now.
Desperately. We can't thank you enough for coming on. Obviously, this has been
I always love chatting with you.
This has been a great festival.
I find you very interesting.
Oh, well, I love talking with you both as well. First of all, phenomenal DJT impression. Second of all, you're incredibly pleasant to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you, since you're such a great guy, I'll give you one more.
Who else do we have?
Well, we've got the kid. Well, we got the guy we love.
Okay. All right. This is the only one that makes me feel like I don't have to move over 3 feet.
Bosh, I just want to say, if you had any idea what I have to go through on a daily basis up on the Hill, it is not fun. Jen, it's great to see you. This is the Festivus for the rest of us. It's a very important holiday. It should be a national holiday. We should have a 3-day weekend. Festivus, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Should be great.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for showing up.
No, of course. No, we must stand together as one people, united behind labor, because if we do not, there is no way this country is going to survive much past 2023 or any further into the future. We are looking at a very dark future. Unfortunately, I have to support my good friend Joe.
Joe is not your fucking friend.
Well, I don't have a lot of friends, so you got to give me a
Whatever.
break. Let me accept that I'm going to try to push it very gently, maybe a little forceful every once in a while, that he might come around and understand that there are very pressing issues for the American people right now.
Oh my God.
So, Vosh,
Need to get
I
better at
don't get to watch your podcast. I heard it's very popular. The kids seem to love it. So keep spreading the good message about we must have social democratic policies in this country. It's what the American people want. They just don't have enough leaders that are out there fighting on their behalf. But rest assured, my fellow Americans, I am fighting on your behalf. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. I will go enjoy my Festivus, Hanukkah, Christmas weekend with my family. Jen, good to see you. Bosh,
Bye, Vern.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Bernie. You're an inspiration to us all.
He inspired
so
me.
good.
He inspired me more.
He does
than,
good, Bernie, right?
Yeah, more than
That's
most.
good. He does good. Period.
Yeah, he does some good ones. Yeah.
No, I try. I try. And again, it's like, why do we do this? We do this because we give a shit, because we believe. We believe that, tomorrow could be a better day for the American people. Did Nevin Gusick actually drop us 20? Nevin, I'm going to assume you did that because you really liked my impression. That's what I'm going to assume. I'll pretend like that's my tip. My tip for doing the Bernie impression. I'll take that.
All right.
So you guys have obviously been
Nice.
great. Vosh, what are you working on? Anywhere that anybody can find you? Anything specific?
He's exactly where he is. That's where people find him. He's right there.
Well, there could be people who don't know him, so I don't know. I'm just trying to help him.
You can find me at Vosh pretty much everywhere. It's been a delight to be here. I'm really looking forward to what kind of good we can do in 2023. If at all, might be 2023 fucking sucks. And if that's the case, then I look forward to weathering and surviving 2023 as we have this winter storm that has blitzed Seattle, and frozen my roads and kept me from getting more cat food when they need it.
You have legal cannabis and death with dignity. I don't want to hear anything from you.
Actually, I think Oregon has death with dignity.
No, Washington does it too.
You have it now? Oh, good.
They have it, and Oregon has it.
We recently lost large caliber magazines, so actually our freedom is waning.
Oh man!
Oh good God! How are you going to live?
How are you?
I know.
Oh man! And the funny thing is that when you go to the gun range and you're using that type of weaponry, you just know that there are people who do it because they really wish they were doing they're imagining who they could be doing it to. I'm sorry, guys, but it's one thing when you're shooting a pistol, when you're shooting a rifle, there is a huge difference when you're shooting a machine gun. Sorry, just had to put that up.
You're such a gun aficionado.
I am in favor of the Second Amendment, but I'm also realistic, and I think more and more Americans need to be realistic. But I digress. Vosh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Obviously, happy holidays to you, and we'll hopefully
Happy New Year.
We'll have another conversation in the new year.
Yeah, don't go too far.
I think we will.
All right.
Have a wonderful holidays, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Be well.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Well,
he's so sweet.
Yes, and I know
he's
you're
a nice
fan.
boy because he's so smart.
So we have to pick our 3 winners. So this is
definitely Double K is getting her pencils.
Yes.
Double K is getting the Festivus pencils. I might stick a little something else in there for her too.
All right. So
you're going to have to add up, but yeah, we're going to have to look, guys, and see.
Got Carrie's at 20.
All right. We're going to figure it out, guys. But in the meantime, if you guys aren't patrons, please check out our Patreon. Right now, the truth is there isn't that much going on in there because there hasn't been that much interest in Patreon. I'd love for there to be a little Patreon community, and I would be totally happy to having like member meetings once a month and doing that kind of stuff. Like I want to do that. We started out, trying that. No one ever came. So I'd really love to be able to create some sort of good Patreon community, but I need some people to join, give some feedback, reach out. I'm actually the person who oversees our little Patreon account. As for right now, it's pretty small, but for $5 a month, you guys can support our show for sure.
Firmware is at 30.
Okay, so we're tallying, guys. So, guys, check it out. $5 a month, you can be a patron. $10 a month will get you the Lulu sticker and the Mansion Parliamentarian sticker. And for $25 a month, there's the For $25 a month, you guys will get our generational change jersey. You have one sitting over there.
Yes, I do.
I think you do. Yeah,
I
guys.
do.
So for $25 a month, you get the generational change jersey. Here comes the sun. And on the back, it's got our generational change logo. They're really cute.
What was it, 40?
And
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, and that way you'd be supporting us. And if you happen to be a local small business, actually, if you're a small business anywhere, we're happy to promote you. But locally, if you are a small business and you would like us to promote your show, we are very happy to do so. And we will do so on a daily basis. And for $50 a month, you could be what we call a small business neighbor. If you're a taco truck, I'd be happy to even come and do our show at your location.
I could go for tacos right now, let me tell you.
So are you tallying?
I am.
Because Double K is a patron, so I have your address.
Double K's getting one.
Yeah, but
getting one.
Okay, so Farmware, how can they message us? Can you guys private
email? Guys, we're going to put it in the chat right now.
We're going to put in our winners in the chat.
Nevin Gusek is number 3. So there are your 3 winners.
So guys, email your address. You guys here, you're going to put in the chat who our 3 people are. Well, Double K, I have your info.
3 winners.
Our 3 winners tonight, our 3 Festivus pencil winners.
Double K, Firmware, and Nevin Gusek.
So Firmware and Nevin, please email your snail mail address to generationalchange@gmail.com.
Yes.
And I will be very happy to send you your Festivus pencils. You won't get them probably till next year.
Please.
I like being able to say that and know that it doesn't mean I'm going to be completely irresponsible because next year isn't that far from now.
No, it's definitely not.
So, I'm excited about this. I saw these and I'm like, okay, I have to be able to give these out. They're really funny, guys. And I don't even have, this was all that he had left. I took whatever he had left sitting at the counter. You know, the guy at the candy store that I like.
Yes.
And he knew my name and my friend was so impressed. How does he know you? I'm like,
you're kind of a big deal.
I'm a big deal. No, because I eat candy. So, I got 3 and I'm going to give all 3 away. So I'm not even keeping a Festivus pencil set.
Yeah.
Very excited. So guys, send us your address. Farmware and Nevin, send us your snail mail, Addie.
But if you're feeling ever so generous, and of course we appreciate any and all generosity.
Yeah, for sure. But if you ever want to donate and not necessarily do it on a super chat or give a piece of it to Google, because you can also use our Cash App.
Which is always appreciated.
Always appreciated. And it's Gen Change, $ Gen Change. And all of our money just goes towards, we help people. And we throw a few bucks to like our friend Ben here, who's doing camera work for us, and somebody who does our video clips.
I think we've got a lot of good content that we'll be seeing over time. You guys will see the wonderful clips I think you'll enjoy. We do not currently have scheduled guests for Monday, the day after Christmas, but I think we had 2 guests that were supposed to be here tonight that should have been here. Maybe we could ask them to join us on Monday. On Wednesday,
yes, that's true.
On Wednesday,
Jordan and Steve.
On Wednesday, we may have, not a guarantee yet, but Wednesday we may have a railroad workers panel. We are working on that. So we'll see what happens on the 28th. To start the new year, January 2nd, we do not have guests yet, but on January 4th, I don't know if you saw what I did.
I saw that was really cool. I wasn't even familiar with this person, but apparently
Alexandra, the Kush Queen.
Once I saw Kush Queen, I knew she was my kind of people. So then I went to her, I don't know if it was her Twitter, it might have been her Instagram. I went to her Instagram and I watched a few clips and then I thought, yeah, she could be my kind of people. She's definitely cool. I didn't know of her as an actress. I didn't know of her in any capacity, but that's cool. So we're going to be talking with her. I'm assuming.
So we are on Rumble, guys. So if you want to check us out there.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben. So have to be working on getting an even bigger audience as we go forward. We'll definitely do some good numbers tonight. We've got lots of great clips. We loved everybody who's on the show tonight, but my God, there is really a certain level of passion in Max Alvarez, especially when he talks about the.
And guys, his book is great. I actually did read it, and when he was on, because you got him on so fast, I hadn't finished it yet, and I still went and finished it, even though he had already been on the show. Like it was really good. Like I was really into, and for for a nonfiction book to be very like where you're in it, like you're really in it, it's not easy. And it was really good. But the stories are so outrageous, some of them, and they're real. It's what real working people dealt with during the COVID year. And he interviews everybody from one of the people was a burlesque dancer. One of the people was a bartender. He had a minor.
What's the name of the book again,
a minor. It's not in front of me. I have the other two books. All right, I'm going to look it up. Entertain people in the meantime.
So we certainly hope you all have had a great holiday week. Obviously, it's going to extend for about another, 10 days or so. We hope you enjoy it while it lasts, because it never does.
Okay, the name of the book is The Work of Living, Working People Talk About Their Lives and the Year the World Broke. But it's called The Work of Living. And it's a great book. It really is. And each chapter is a different person. Oh, the person that was talking about their experience in the gig economy, what that's been like for people. And just, he's so on the ground with labor. He's really great. Between him and like the guys at More Perfect Union, I feel like those are the people that are, and Jordan, that are really covering. And, the labor is just being so snubbed by mainstream media, and it's very important. But Max's book was actually, I'm telling you, like, it's not, I read a lot of books for people coming on the show, and some of them I kind of have to get through. His book was really easy to get through. It was really good. So, yeah.
Big shout out to everybody who attended tonight. Of course, we really appreciate each and every one of you. Needless to say, happy Festivus, happy Hanukkah. Merry Chris.
I'm actually kind of liking this.
Yeah.
Well, this is, it's our Festivus poll.
By the way, Jen, would you like to, before we go,
I'm not doing feats of strength with you. If you and Ben want to like take it on the mat over there, he's a lot more, worthy opponent.
Would you like to tell the audience what Festivus miracle I gave you?
What was the Festivus miracle?
A gift.
What Festivus miracle?
I gave you a gift.
You gave me a gift? Oh, yeah. You mean the speaker?
Yes.
Peter gave me a gift. It's a very cool speaker. It's a Bluetooth speaker that he gave me a gift. And I don't know why you think that's a Festivus miracle.
Well, you didn't expect me to get you a gift, so it became a miracle.
No, I didn't expect, because I don't do gifts, but like, I don't think of that as a Festivus miracle.
Okay. Well, the Festivus miracle is going to be the uniting of labor in 2024.
The Festivus miracle is going to be, we're going to wrap this up and I'm going to go get Menchie's with my kid.
Yes. Well,
that's one of the things I'm going to go do right now.
That sounds great. And in the meantime,
Festivus Menchie's.
Thank you all. You've been fantastic. The chat has been great. Paul, Carrie, Double K, Paul, Metaopoly, obviously Ben's here, Greg, Travers, you guys.
And I know Virgo. I saw Fire Breathing Rob on there at one point too.
He's been coming in and out. Well, we've had a long stream, 3.5 hours, and it feels pretty,
And to think like Vosh did this for like 27 hours. He gamed for 27 hours on like a marathon stream.
Well, like I said, if you ever run again and he's willing to have you on for a stream.
That we have thought about that. Like that would be a really good fundraiser for me, doing like a video game stream with Vosh.
Mario Kart. That's my pick
I'm just
for Jen.
so not wanting to play video games.
Oh, you're going to have to pick something. And Mario Kart seems to be the universal choice for most. So yes. On that note, labor, let's do it.
Yeah, that's how it has to be.
We will definitely see you guys before the new year. Will it be Monday and Wednesday? Not sure yet, but you'll definitely see us next week.
What are we doing?
We'll figure it out.
And what are we doing for New Year's Eve?
I don't know.
Where are you going?
I'll wing it.
What are you doing?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see you soon. And happy Festivus.